This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wisconsin Live Desk. On this Monday, December 1st, a new week, a new calendar month. We're getting you going here at 12:30. I'll be with you, Carl Defbaugh, here for the next 2 hours until 2:30. Ben Handelman handling our 3 duties on the Live Desk today as we're here with you each and every Monday through Friday, 12:30 to 3:30. And sometimes far beyond that. We're coming off a very busy weather weekend for our crews and certainly for you out and about around southeastern Wisconsin, as we give you this view south from the Esterbrook Park Tower camera and that blanket of snow, which is now all over southeastern Wisconsin following that snowfall in some places, 10, 12 inches. This part of our state and in others, maybe not the totals that other areas saw, but still the impact as we were dealing with a whole lot over the weekend and still into this Monday that we'll get to momentarily. Our weather experts and our team of reporters and anchors were busy this weekend bringing you the winter weather coverage throughout Saturday, especially as the snow was coming down and continuing into Sunday when we still saw the impact. So we will get some updates for you on that from our weather experts throughout the day today, because actually there's more snow in the forecast this week, not necessarily the totals, but also not any relief from the winter weather this week, especially because of the temperatures coming our way. And that's going to be the big story this week, perhaps not the snow, but the cold temperatures that will be impacting much of southeastern Wisconsin. Now, when it comes to what's left after the storm, an interesting story we're going to bring you here from our Christina Van Zelst, who's in East Troy for us. Of course, this being December, it's the season of holiday lights out and about everywhere, except in East Troy because of some issues related to the winter weather. So let's bring in Christina now, who's hanging out, it looks like in the middle of what could be a really lovely holiday display, Christina, but tell us what's happening down there and what you're working on for us today here at Fox 6.
Yeah, hi, Carl. Of course, the snow makes the light tunnel that I'm standing in look very picturesque and winter wonderland-ish, if you will. But we just got done interviewing the co-creators of this downtown light display, and they say Mother Nature has given them really a hard time over the last week. So to take you back to last week first, they were dealing with the really windy Tuesday night into Wednesday. They said here in East Troy there were wind gusts that were up to 50 miles an hour, which actually ended up blowing this entire tunnel that I'm standing under now over. So think about, they had months of preparing for this and setting up these lights, and then for the wind to just completely knock it over. Then there was a rush to get it back up before we had that major snowstorm over the weekend, which they did. But now, so you can see the tunnel's up. They do have some of the lights strung. There's some missing spaces and still a lot of work to be done. And now the big question is, what are they going to do about the inches of snow and snow mounds that they have? Because really this area is usually filled with thousands of people. Opening day is on Saturday, and there's still a lot of lights to be set up. A lot of things are actually buried underneath the snow, including some of the light cable boxes, and some of the cords by the trees are now all underneath this snow. So they are calling on volunteers to come help. They are looking for people to help dig all of this out so that they can put in the rest of the displays. And if you haven't seen the East Troy downtown lights display, it's really cool. They actually incorporate all of the buildings around this square, and it's interactive and all timed. And Saturday, Santa is on his way here, so they are trying to get everything ready for Santa. Of course, Santa's used to the North Pole and the snow, so that won't be a problem for Santa, but they are looking at having to close down an additional road around this area just in case they can't get the snow cleared from this square so that people can actually stand and enjoy the lights. So again, Mother Nature giving them a run for their money here in East Troy, but they are doing a great job so far getting this tunnel back up, and then there's a couple other tunnels that still need some help, and of course the snow. That's the next step. So Carl, lots of work to be done here in East Troy. Yeah, wow, that double whammy of the wind first of all as you're trying to get that work prepared, and then of course the snow on top of all of that. Did you get a sense from folks about what it's like when it's actually up and running down there? I imagine it's gorgeous when it's dark out, the lights are all lit up, and kind of a tradition for so many families down there, especially with Santa coming. Yeah, I got a little sneak peek, a video from last year. Hopefully we can incorporate that in our story later tonight. But it is really cool because this is a downtown square and you've got all of the surrounding buildings that participate and the lights go in sync with each other. And of course the snow makes it look beautiful too, but they did tell us that this is the first year they've experienced snow before opening day. So that adds another challenge, but it does make it look gorgeous and very holiday spirit with the lights twinkling in the snow. So it looks spectacular. And of course, they're still planning on doing it this weekend, opening day on Saturday. One thing too that they're asking for people, if you feel like you want to help, but maybe can't come out here and physically help dig them out, donations, because a lot of their equipment got destroyed in that storm. A lot of things got buried. So they are looking for donations to help create this show. This is all volunteer-based and community-driven, and they've been doing it since COVID. So this is the 6th year. But again, if you feel inspired to help, there is a donation link, and we can have that linked on our Fox Local app as well.
Yeah, so maybe those people that are a bit of a Christmas decor hoarders can have a place for all their stuff this year if they want to help out, have it on display there in East Troy. When it comes to the time, again, what's the best way if people are watching this and want to help out down there to come, or at least say that you're available this week to come and give them a hand?
Really, whenever. It sounds like there will be some people coming here after they work today. So whenever it's convenient for you. I know the chamber, the East Troy Chamber of Commerce is the one who is putting this show on, which they're located right on this square. So whenever you're available, I'm sure they would not say no to someone showing up here with a shovel. Some of the sidewalks are already done. And another thing I forgot to mention, in the middle here is where there's a band, and the bandstand, which we can't see from our vantage point, that is actually covered in snow too. So they have to be careful with, you know, water in the cords, and just, it sounds like a day-by-day thing that they are trying to tackle all of these weather-related issues. But if you showed up here with a shovel, to get all the snow removed, I don't think they would be upset about that.
Yeah, they won't say no to a helping hand out there. Christina, thank you so much. Hopefully this is a great story for the holiday season, right? People helping other people, and they're looking for a little bit of help down there in East Troy to make sure it's still a magical holiday for the kids and all the families hoping to see Santa's arrival early this weekend. Thank you so much, Christina. We'll check in with you and look for your story later on Fox Local.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Carl.
That is our own Christina Van Zelst, along with her photographer Tim Primo down there in East Troy, bringing us that impact of not only the snow over the weekend, but the wind before that. It has been an absolutely wild stretch in Wisconsin weather for about a week or so now. Really, this point last week is where things were looking pretty good, but we knew it was about to change, and boy did they ever, over the windy middle of the week and then all the snow that came in on Saturday. And you know what? We are actually still seeing some of the impacts of that today as we give you a live look at our DOT cameras from a crash that just popped up about 15 minutes ago or so on 94 North at the ramp from Wisconsin 20. The right shoulder, as you can see, is blocked there as emergency vehicles are on hand. Looks like traffic's getting by fine now in those 3 open lanes. But if you're on that on-ramp, you'll certainly notice the emergency vehicles as you're trying to get on. We don't know exactly what happened with this crash or how it happened, but this morning we can tell you we saw a number of issues in the morning commute. You know, the good news about Saturday's snow was that it was coming over a weekend. Yes, it was a busy travel weekend for many, so there was, of course, the possibility of those impacts, or maybe you had to adjust your schedule getting home from grandma's house or wherever you were for the Thanksgiving holiday. But for the most part, that snow fell on a day when people could just kind of bundle up and stay inside and enjoy it through the window. Then this morning, as so many people are getting back to school and work, we saw the impacts. There were a number of different crashes, major delays all across southeastern Wisconsin, the Milwaukee metro area in the morning commute, and looks like we're still seeing some of the issues there as this crash 94 North at the ramp from Wisconsin 20. There are emergency vehicles there, but some issues as you're seeing for folks merging onto the interstate heading north towards Milwaukee there. I believe it's 4 lanes actually, not 3 as I said, plus the on-ramp. So a number of different things that we are tracking for you here on this Monday afternoon on the Wisconsin Live Desk, 12:39, and we'll see see if that gets cleared while we're hanging out with you here over the next couple of hours. Now, as we get back to some of the news nationally as well, coming off the holiday weekend, there's a lot of it when it comes to the Trump administration response to the National Guard shooting in D.C. and some of the changes to the refugee and immigration programs that the administration wants to see adjusted in the wake of that deadly shooting, plus the ongoing peace talks between Ukraine, the U.S., and Russia, and how that could potentially develop this week. So for much more on that, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just started her weekly briefing about 5 minutes ago or so. So let's listen in to the Press Secretary now, live from the White House. A number of different statements and questions from reporters. We'll see what we get in this Monday afternoon briefing.
And I would point out that the Democrats have tried to block this administration from doing so at every turn with lawsuit after lawsuit. The hard truth is that even when it comes to our legal immigration system, past presidents have failed to ensure that all prospective citizens love America, will add value and contribute to our communities, and will assimilate into our culture. Leaders have a duty to defend and advance the interests of their own people, not foreign nationals. Leaders also have a duty to preserve the integrity and character of our nation's national identity. That is why President Trump is more committed than ever to fully restoring American sovereignty by keeping our borders secure, removing all illegal alien invaders, and rebuilding a legal immigration system that makes sense and benefits our country. President Trump has no higher responsibility than to defend our homeland and our people, and he will never waver in doing so. With that, I will open it up to questions, and we'll lead today with Isabel Brown, who is in our new media seat. She's a very popular face on television these days. She's built a great independent media podcast and platform with the Daily Wire, and I appreciate your being here, Isabel. Thank you for being here.
Caroline, appreciate it and appreciate the briefing. Many Americans, in light of these recent events that you just mentioned, are starting to say that we are being invaded as a country, culturally and logistically, when it comes to immigration. And we know that immigration without assimilation is indeed invasion. So given the recent remarks from Vice President Vance on a college campus about dramatically reducing legal immigration to address some of this crisis, and President Trump's Truth Social post last week about individuals who may be non-compatible with Western civilization, are there any conversations happening or plans being made behind the scenes for the administration to implement at least a temporary immigration moratorium, for example, in light of what the American people might be calling for?
So, Isabel, it's a great question. I think I spoke a little bit to the heart of your question in my opener there. I would add that the Trump administration has done more to limit migration, both illegal and legal, than any administration in history. And I'll just walk you through some of the actions that we have taken thus far. Number one, the Trump administration issued a travel ban for 19 countries, including Afghanistan, special immigrant visas, which is a legal pathway to get here, which we know many Afghans have utilized to come into the country, have now been paused since the tragic shooting last week. Refugee admissions were suspended for Afghans from this administration on day one, and refugee admissions into the country right now are essentially at zero, with the exception of Afrikaners fleeing persecution in South Africa. The State Department has also heightened their scrutiny and vetting of all visas and have revoked visas, as you know, for those who do not align with our country's national interests. The Secretary of State has the right to do that, and we've taken unprecedented action to do just that. We are also now pausing all asylum adjudications for additional vetting as well. And so additional actions I don't have to read out for you today, but I would just remark that the president has made tremendous progress on this front. And it's why it's so crucial that we not only secure the borders, which the president did in record time. We have zero illegal aliens entering into the country month after month, but we also are taking a look at those who are already in the interior of our country and removing them if they are here illegally, and also taking a look at these visas. Again, having a visa in the United States is not a right, it is a privilege. And the Secretary of State, if you are deemed contrary to our country's foreign national interests, has the right to revoke that privilege. Thank you. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Excuse me. Regarding Venezuela, the president said yesterday that Secretary Hegseth had denied that second strike, a reported second strike on an alleged drug vote on September 2nd. The secretary said to the president that that didn't happen. But to clarify, I just wanted you to clear this up. In his social media post, Secretary Hegseth didn't go into details about that strike. He just said U.S. operations in the area were lawful, and he said that the story and media reports were fabricated. So to be clear, does the administration deny that that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Abe, and I have a statement to read for you here. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. And I would just add one more point to remind the American public why these lethal strikes are taking place. Because this administration has designated these narco-terrorists as foreign terrorist organizations. The president has a right to take them out if they are threatening the United States of America and if they are bringing illegal narcotics that are killing our citizens at a record rate, which is what they are doing. And under the previous administration, there was enough fentanyl trafficked into our country to kill every American man, woman, and child many times over. And so that's why you've seen a drastic difference in this administration's policy with respect to the last, and it's one of the many reasons the American public reelected this president and support this Secretary of War in conducting these strikes.
So to be clear, to clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
And a separate question, the president several days ago said it was his intention to pardon the former president of Honduras, who was a convicted drug trafficker. And yesterday on Air Force One, the president said that if someone sells drugs in that country, that doesn't mean you arrest the president and put him in jail for the rest of his life. How is that different than what the administration is accusing Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro of?
You're cherry-picking the president's statement a little bit yesterday, as he also said yesterday the people of Honduras have highlighted to him how the former President Hernandez was set up. This was a clear Biden over prosecution. He was the president of this country. He was in the opposition party. He was opposed to the values of the previous administration, and they charged him because he was president of Honduras. There were some other egregious facts that came out during this trial, and I would encourage you to report on them. His court-appointed lawyer was only given 3 weeks to prepare for trial. He shared that his conviction was lawfare by the leftist party, who, quote, struck a deal with the Biden-Harris administration. Hernandez has highlighted there was virtually no independent evidence presented, and many of his conviction was based on testimony from many admitted criminals who hoped that cooperating would reduce their own penalties. So the president heard the concerns from many people, as he does, and he's, of course, within his constitutional authority to sign clemency for whomever he deems worthy of that. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. Following up on Gabe's question, you said that the follow-up strike was lawful. What law is it that allows no survivors?
The strike conducted on September 2nd was conducted in self-defense to protect Americans in vital United States interests. The strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict.
And then on this pardon for the Honduran president, does it at all undercut the administration's messaging while you have these congressional Republicans defending the strikes on the narco-terrorists and then a pardon for a convicted drug trafficker? Does that make it more difficult for your members to defend your administration's policy?
I don't think so, Jackie. I think that President Trump has been quite clear in his defense of the United States homeland to stop these illegal narcotics from coming to our borders, whether that's by land or by sea. And he's also made it quite clear that he wants to correct the wrongs of the weaponized Justice Department under the previous administration. And Ouija, I'll call on you because I think we're wearing matching blazers today.
I was going to
Great minds.
yours. Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
So just to be clear, to clarify on Jackie and Gabe, did Admiral Bradley order that second strike because there were still survivors after the initial strike?
Again, as I read for you, Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law. He directed the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat of narco-terrorists to the United States was completely eliminated.
So was the initial order from Secretary Hegseth, everyone be killed, and did that come from President Trump?
I saw that quoted in a Washington Post story. I would reject that the Secretary of War ever said that. However, the president has made it quite clear that if narco-terrorists, again, are trafficking illegal drugs towards the United States, he has the authority to kill them. And that's what this administration is doing.
And can I
Danny?
follow up on the MRI? Because President Trump yesterday said that he would release the results of his MRI. Is that happening right now?
It is happening right now. As part of, and this is a summary from the president's physician, and we will release it right now. I think my team has it teed up for all of you. I'll read it for you, and then you'll get it physically as well. As part of President Trump's comprehensive executive physical, advanced imaging was performed because men in his age group benefit from a thorough evaluation of cardiovascular and abdominal health. The purpose of this imaging is preventative, to identify any issues early, confirm overall health, and ensure the president maintains long-term vitality and function. President Trump's cardiovascular imaging was perfectly normal. No evidence of arterial narrowing impairing blood flow or abnormalities in the heart or major vessels. The heart chambers are normal in size, the vessel walls appear smooth and healthy, and there are no signs of inflammation or clotting. Overall, his cardiovascular system shows excellent health. His abdominal imaging is also perfectly normal. All major organs appear very healthy and well perfused. Everything evaluated is functioning within normal limits with no acute or chronic concerns. In summary, this level of detailed assessment is standard for an executive physical at President Trump's age and confirms that he remains in excellent overall health. Again, we will provide that to you. I think that's quite a bit of detail, and in the effort of transparency, the president promised it last night, and we have delivered today. So there you go. Danny.
Thanks, Caroline. Just going back to Venezuela, can you confirm that President Trump is going to be hosting a meeting of his national security team in the Oval Office today on Venezuela? And what are they going to discuss? Are they hoping to reach a kind of final decision on that?
Out of the effort of transparency, I will confirm that the president will be meeting with his national security team on this subject and on many matters. He meets with his national security team quite often. He's the commander-in-chief. It's part of his responsibility to ensure that peace is ongoing throughout the world. I'm definitely not going to detail the specifics of a meeting between the president and his national security team that's taking place in the Oval Office, but I'm happy to confirm that meeting is taking place for you.
Can you tell us, is there still, what's the position on whether US troops on the ground is a possibility there? Is that, I know you've answered that before, but what's the current operative
in Venezuela? I think my previous answer stands. There's many options at the president's disposal that are on the table, and I'll let him speak on those. Ed.
The U.S. announced a trade framework deal with the United Kingdom on pharmaceuticals, where they will pay 25% more, and the savings theoretically will go back to American consumers. What guarantees are in that savings will in fact go back to the American consumer and not be sucked up by the company?
I'm going to be honest with you, Ed. I'll get you the answer to that question after the briefing.
So the American Rescue Plan,
Sure.
funded a number of universal income.
Kush will get you that answer, right, Kush? My trade guy over here.
The American Rescue Plan funded a number of universal basic income programs. Now Cook County, Illinois is extending that program into 2026 with $7.5 million of taxpayer money. What does the White House think about that?
I'll also get you an answer on that after the briefing.
Two for two.
Go ahead. Sure.
And then in the interest of transparency, does the White House support releasing the Department of Defense's video of those September 2nd strikes on those military boats? And also, separate topic on presidential pardon power. Why did the president commute the sentence of David Gentile recently? He was a private equity executive. He served 12 days out of a 7-year sentence. Prosecutors said he defrauded $1.6 billion with thousands of victims, including veterans, farmers, teachers. Why was he pardoned?
To your first question, that's definitely not a decision for me to make. I would defer you to the Department of War. It's also probably a decision for the president himself to make. As for your second question with respect to that pardon, he issued a commutation for Mr. Gentile, who's the former CEO and co-founder of GBP Capital Holdings. Unlike similar companies, GBP paid regular annualized distributions to its investors. In 2015, GBP disclosed to investors the possibility of using investor capital to pay some of these distributions rather than funding them from current operations. Even though this was disclosed to investors, the Biden Department of Justice claimed it was a Ponzi scheme. This claim was profoundly undercut by the fact that GBP had explicitly told investors what would happen. At trial, the government was unable to tie any supposedly fraudulent representations to Mr. Gentile. In short, again, this is another example that has been brought to the president's attention of a weaponization of justice from the previous administration, and therefore he signed this commutation.
So say that these people were defrauded.
I just read you a very detailed summary of why the commutation was made. Sure. In the middle with the red tie.
Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, Andrew, go ahead, and then you.
In wake of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor
Go ahead
Greene's
after.
early resignation, reports last week indicated that other House Republicans might consider doing the same. Does the president have any concerns in light of those reports about other House Republicans potentially leaving early, as well as the other announced retirements that we saw in the last couple of days?
Look, I think the president maintains very good relationships with the vast majority, maybe with the exception of one or two. I think many in this room know who I'm referring to. Very good relationships with members of Capitol Hill within the Republican Party. And the president clearly is the unequivocal leader of the Republican Party. I think it was a recent CNN poll that actually showed that more than 90% of Republicans continue to support President Trump as the leader. So he maintains very good relations, as does his entire team here at the White House. And of course, we have a very slim margin in the House, and the president wants that to continue. Andrew, go ahead. Sure.
First, on the Venezuela strike, you said that that second strike was in full accordance with the law of armed conflict, but the Navy's own manual of law of war says that specifically firing on survivors from a wrecked vessel is an example of a war crime that's forbidden under U.S. law and the law of armed conflict. So how was that second strike in following law of armed conflict and then second on immigration?
Again, Andrew, I would reiterate to you the strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict. And since somebody asked about Congress, and it's sort of related to Venezuela, I also want to add that Secretary Hegseth spoke with members of Congress who may have expressed some concerns over the weekend. And there have also been 13 bipartisan briefings to Congress on the Venezuelan strikes. There have been a number of document reviews for members of Congress to review the classified DOJ Office of Legal Counsel opinion and other related documents. 29 senators and 92 representatives have reviewed those documents, which is about 2/3 of those are Democrat members, and they have been made available to all 100 senators, all 435 members of the House, and to general counsels of the relevant committees on a bipartisan basis for their review.
On immigration, during your topper you said, and I quote, "Leaders also have a duty to preserve the integrity and character of our nation's national identity." Can you explain what you mean by our nation's national identity and integrity and character, and how would refugees, people coming from war-torn places who are seeking a safe haven in America, like many of our forebears in this room, not add to our nation's integrity and character of our national identity?
I'll tell you what does not add to our nation's character and integrity is refugees who come here under the alleged plight of asylum and fleeing persecution, and then come to the United States to abuse our system and rip off American taxpayers. And as I pointed out, the New York Times, to their credit, it was about 6 months too late, but they did write about how Somali immigrants in Minnesota have been ripping off American taxpayers. In fact, 86 people have been charged in a rampant and widespread fraud scheme spanning multiple programs in Minnesota. Of those 86, 78 of those people are Somali, 91% of them charged. So far, 59 of those people have been convicted for their roles in fraud plots that have stolen $1 billion from taxpayers. In one scheme, and this is egregious, a nonprofit and its affiliates with these Somali migrants claimed to have fed tens of thousands of American children during the pandemic. They were reimbursed for those meals by taxpayers. However, federal prosecutors found that almost all of those meals were never even delivered to hungry children. In fact, those organizations' leaders spent the money on houses, luxury cars, and real estate in Turkey and Kenya. Another scheme involved hundreds of organizations who were reimbursed for services that were supposed to help people at risk of homelessness. Once again, those services were never provided. All of this has happened under Democrat leadership in a Democrat-run state where these refugees, these migrants are coming to the United States. They are abusing our system. They are draining our resources that should be going to law-abiding, taxpayer-funded, tax-paying Americans. And this president is not going to put up with it anymore. Rachel.
Thank you, Caroline. Just to follow back up on the Washington Post reporting, so much of the concern from Democrats and Republicans is focused on the survivors. Why won't the administration either confirm or deny or reveal whether or not there were survivors after that initial first strike? And what imminent threat would two survivors pose who were clinging presumably to the wreckage of that boat?
Again, as I said, I think you guys are sort of not listening fully to the statement I've provided. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was totally destroyed and the threat to the narco-terrorists, to the United States, was eliminated. And for any further questions about his thinking, I would defer you to the Department of War. I obviously wasn't in the room for these.
Just to follow up, Caroline, just on the administration's policy when it comes to survivors, was there a change in policy after this strike on September 2nd? The Washington Post is reporting that these two survivors were killed after a second strike, but then in October, two people were rescued and returned to Colombia and Ecuador. So was there a decision that was made to handle survivors differently after these strikes?
Not to my knowledge, no. Steve.
The president confirmed that he spoke to the Venezuelan leader. Are you trying to negotiate his departure? Is there an asylum deal under works?
President, as you know, last night on Air Force One, he said, I don't want to comment on that, but I did speak to him in the effort of transparency. So there you go. You got your confirmation. I'll let him speak further if he wishes to on the details of that conversation that took place.
Steve Witkoff is headed to Moscow. How close are you to some sort of Ukraine agreement?
I think the administration feels very optimistic. Obviously, you've seen, Steve, that the president's entire team, including Special Envoy Witkoff and Secretary Rubio and the Vice President and the President himself, Secretary Hegseth as well, have been working so hard on this effort, and they all really want to see this war come to an end. And so just yesterday, Sunday, I believe that was yesterday, they had very good talks with the Ukrainians in Florida, and now, of course, Special Envoy Witkoff is on his way to Russia. This is sort of the shuttle diplomacy that you've seen from this administration play out, where we speak equally with both sides. We've put points on paper. Those points have been very much refined, but as for the details, I will let the negotiators negotiate, but we do feel quite good, and we're hopeful that this war can finally come to an end. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. I've got a question about Ukraine and then a clarification about immigration changes that are happening. On Ukraine, President Trump very briefly yesterday said that corruption issues there were not helpful to the peace process following the resignation on Friday of President Zelensky's top aide, Andrei Yermak. We were told from your podium in the prior administration that, quote, there is no indication that there's been any kind of widespread corruption involving U.S. resources in Ukraine. What is the Trump administration's view of corruption issues in the wake of Yermak's resignation, and how is that impacting peace talks?
Well, look, I think the president has made it quite clear, as he said last night, corruption is never helpful. And he does not want to see American tax dollars taken advantage of, which is why he has stopped the endless checks that were being written by the previous administration to fund this war. The United States is selling weapons to NATO that are being sent to Ukraine. That's a very different thing than the American people writing blank checks to a war effort very far away. It does not degrade the administration's determination to see this war come to an end, but I think it exemplifies the president's desire to always put the American people and the American taxpayer first.
On immigration, you mentioned, or you emphasized that there would be a review of the Afghans who were resettled here under the previous administration.
Yes.
There's a lot of changes happening right now to asylum and to green card holders. What should the 2 million people with pending asylum claims, or the roughly 1 million people from the 18 other countries of concern, know about what's going on in the review? What's the status of all these other people?
They're essentially paused for review, and the Department of Homeland Security is taking this very seriously, because we are not going to allow soldiers like we saw in American streets last week to be gunned down at the hands of these foreign nationals who had the privilege of coming to the United States of America. And unfortunately, this is not the only example of a dangerous Afghan who was let in by Joe Biden, who went on to harm the American people. There was an Afghan national who was let into the country under the Biden administration through Operation Allies Welcome, who shot and wounded 2 Fairfax, Virginia police officers during a routine traffic stop. He was killed by return fire after declaring, quote, "I should have served with the explicitive Taliban." 2 Afghan nationals were given legal status by the Biden administration as well, who were arrested and prosecuted for plotting a terrorist attack in Oklahoma just before Election Day in 2024. We all remember that. They possessed hundreds of rounds of ammunition and had pledged their allegiance to ISIS. There was also an Afghan national who was on the terror watch list who was apprehended by Border Patrol in 2024, but then he was released into our country by the Biden administration. Again, let's just highlight the absurdity of that. Border Patrol apprehended a terrorist, and then the Biden administration, because of their lax policies, still allowed him to come into the United States of America. I think everyone in this room, whether you want to admit it or not, does not want that individual living alongside you in your American neighborhood. And that individual was later arrested again after being allowed to live in the U.S. at large for over a year. Another one, a criminal illegal alien from Afghanistan, was arrested by ICE in 2025, convicted of second-degree assault, was previously allowed to stay in the country by the Biden administration. I have several more examples here. I'm happy to provide them to anyone in this room. John.
Thank you, Caroline. First of all, happy Thanksgiving to
Thank you
and your young family. Hope you enjoyed it. I have 2 questions unrelated. The first, back to Afghanistan. My son and I walked by the horrific shooting less than 1 hour before it happened. So for anybody that's here, this thing's real. You outlined all of these unvetted Afghans that that were let in by Biden. We just had one the other day that was going to blow up a DHS building. Can you be specific on what the Trump administration is doing now to re-vet those that are here so that we don't get a repeat of what we had Wednesday night?
Sure. I can tell you 2 top-level things, and I would defer you to DHS for more of the specifics, as of course they are leading this effort, and I can assure you Secretary Noem is on the ball. I've spoken with her and her team, and they have an all-hands-on-deck effort to having resources go towards this. But we have paused all asylum adjudications, and then of course the special immigrant visas, which we know many Afghans utilize to come into the country under the Biden administration, have also now been paused. And I would just point out one more time that the Biden administration was responsible for the original sin that led to this tragic killing last week, the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. He was responsible for Operation Allies Welcome, which is something that this White House and the people behind this podium in the last administration fully and wholeheartedly embraced. And they assured the American people there would be no risk or no harm to them. And as I just laid out for you in those many examples, that unfortunately and tragically has not turned out to be the truth. Just ask the families of these 2 brave National Guardsmen, one who is no longer with us and one who continues to fight for his life. So I know the president is wholeheartedly focused on this effort, and I think unfortunately these events do remind us why it's so important that the president's mass deportation operation continues. With that, sure.
Follow up. The White House today launched a new fake news portal, which I found interesting. What is your objective with that, ultimately? And are you going to name the news networks, and are you also going to name some of the correspondents, some which may be here today?
Yes, we are. I'm glad you noticed. Much to the dismay of some of your colleagues in the room, John. And I think it goes to our original promise on day one to hold the media accountable, because unfortunately, and we deal with this all day, every day around here, there are so many fake stories that are unfortunately written that have inaccurate characterizations of meetings that took place, and it's all based on anonymous sourcing. And you know, the standard for journalism, unfortunately, has dropped to such a historic low in this country. And again, we deal with it every day, where you can have an anonymous source who has no idea what they're talking about, 0 credibility, call up a reporter in Washington and say, hey, I heard this, and then the next thing you know, it's on the front page of the New York Times. It's really incomprehensible. We appreciate the journalists, some of those who are in this room who do reach out for comment who try to get things right, and there are some that remain. But overwhelmingly, the fake news that we see pumped out of this building on a day-to-day basis, it's honestly overwhelming to keep up with it all, and to constantly have to defend against these fake news and these attacks. And I will point out one fake news story over the weekend before I let you all go, from the New York Times that took about 1/3 of the president's daily calendar and his daily schedule and said that he's doing less than he did in his first term, or he might not be fit for the job. That is unequivocally false, and it's deeply unfortunate that this story was written by the same outlet and the same reporter who wrote this: Biden is doing 100% fine after tripping while boarding Air Force One. Oh, same outlet, same reporter who wrote that President Trump is not fit for the job. Are you kidding me? You all see him almost every single day. He is the most accessible president in history. He is taking meetings around the clock. Another one. Biden declared, quote, healthy and vigorous after his first presidential physical. I don't see headlines like that too often about this president. Again, same reporter, same outlet who wrote falsely over the weekend that President Trump is not fit for the job. I can assure you he absolutely is. You all see that with your own eyes on a daily basis, and the president's physician has now given you all 3 detailed reports on the state of the president's health. So with that, I will leave you all, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, you've been listening to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt there giving the briefing and the administration's viewpoints on a series of different topics there to the White House press corps inside of that briefing room at the White House. A couple of the things to come out, since it ended on the topic of health, were indeed a report from the White House physician saying that President Donald Trump, after an MRI, is in excellent overall health. And that was after exams include advanced imaging, including MRIs, that were standard for an executive physical in Trump's age group. This followed the president himself saying he knew he had an MRI, wasn't sure what the MRI was focused on. In this case, the physician said it concluded the cardiovascular, the heart system for the president, and abdominal imaging were all, quote, perfectly normal in that MRI. Now, a number of the questions you heard there from the White House were related to the recent increase in activity against Venezuela and suspected drug vessels off the coast of Venezuela, including particularly the recent firing and strike of a suspected drug vessel off of Venezuela that was, according to the press secretary, the statement she kept going back to, quote, in self-defense and, quote, in accordance with laws governing armed conflict. Now, the question for many, including members of Congress, in the wake of that strike in particular, has been a fact that there were apparently defense officials who gave a verbal order to leave no survivors after an initial strike seemed to show 2 survivors in the water off that damaged vessel in the Caribbean going back to September 2nd, and that there was a follow-up strike that then left no survivors. Now, a series of people in Congress, most of them Democrats, have said that could constitute a war crime from members of the Department of Defense, including the Secretary Pete Hegseth, if that were in fact true. Members of the Republican Party in Congress have also questioned this and want further hearings related to these attacks on alleged drug vessels off the coast of Venezuela. But the White House and the press secretary in particular, going back to that statement that those, including the second strike in particular, was conducted in self-defense and in accordance with laws governing armed conflict. Of course, much more to come from that and the many other topics, including the changes to the immigration and refugee programs here in the U.S. Following the shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. by an Afghan national who had come to the U.S. All will be debated and discussed, I'm sure, in full over the next few days and hours. With that, we do have to take a break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We've been rolling for a while, but a quick 2 minutes, and we'll be back with you with some of the local news, including the weather, which remains the big story here in southeastern Wisconsin. This is a live look from our Estabrook Park tower camera. The snow is here, and there's actually more on the way. We'll chat with our weather expert, Stephanie Barrichello, after this quick break on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Deffenbaugh with you here, 1:15 on this Monday afternoon, the 1st of December, although the winter weather arrived early. The end of November had quite the wallop for all of us across southeastern Wisconsin as we give you a live look again from the Estabrook Park Tower camera. A number of different cameras we have for you, but this one kind of captures the picture. All of that snow all across the Milwaukee metro area, and hey, even a tiny freight ship you can make out in Lake Michigan there coming in or leaving the Milwaukee harbor under that blanket of clouds. Well, let's get a more in-depth look at the weather with one of our experts back there in the office. That would be the one, the only, Stephanie Barrichello, who joins us now. Let me make sure your mic is up there, Steph. How you doing on this Monday?
I'm doing great. How are you? Nice and warm back here in the weather
Yeah,
office.
that's true. It's a good view for this picture from inside, looking at all that snow behind you from that Estabrook Park Tower camera. We've mentioned it a few times. Obviously, the major impacts over the weekend. We even saw it this morning, still with issues on the roads as people were getting back to work and school today. But this week, it's kind of a different story, right? It's the temperatures. It's a little bit of snow, not like we got over the weekend, but the cold temperatures that really set in this week, right?
Yeah, you know, we're not going to warm up anytime soon. We have one day where we could hit freezing, and that's Wednesday. But then Wednesday night into Thursday, we're going to tank even more than where we're at right now. So it's one of those situations where, you know, if we end up seeing any little bit of melting from sunshine in the coming days, it will just refreeze into our nighttime hours as temperatures pretty much remain freezing, below freezing that is, for at least the next 6 days. So yes, we're kind of in this endless cycle of needing to watch for icy patches pretty much from here on out. It does create a beautiful scene, absolutely. No snow falling at the moment here locally, but there is some out west as well as down south. So the reason the clouds are here is because we have a system approaching from the south. Now, thankfully, this is nothing in comparison to what we experienced Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But it is additional light snow and potentially some additional accumulation in a handful of communities. We've got just some light flurries starting to work their way into southeast Wisconsin as we speak. The major impacts with this storm will stay pretty far towards the south of us. In fact, there are winter weather advisories across Illinois and points towards the south and east, not for us here locally. That being said, you know, we are going to see the northernmost edge of this system, so light snow is still in the forecast pretty much from here on out, meaning it is going to impact our evening commute, and there are still a lot of stretches of roadway or pavement that need to be cleared from this past weekend storm that just completely iced up. So any additional snowfall on top of already icy patches really could create some slippery spots and just some issues for anybody traveling tonight. So not a lot of snow in the forecast, but unfortunately we will just need to keep our guard up and still travel slow, especially throughout your evening commute. But again, the heaviest snowfall is still falling across southern Illinois right now, and that's where a lot of the higher snowfall totals with this system will end up. In fact, look at this. There's actually a warmer side of this storm system that's bringing in sleet and freezing rain. There's icing potential across the middle and lower Mississippi Valley. Just some heavy rainfall down towards the Gulf Coast. But again, Arkansas right now really dealing with a messy part of this storm system. And we're thankful here locally because, again, that's going to stay way south of us. There's a pretty broad area under winter headlines right now with this storm system pushing on through. Notice how Milwaukee and southern Wisconsin not included in this winter weather advisory. That being said, we still have the chance to see, you know, Milwaukee and south, maybe an inch or so of accumulation. That sounds like such a measly number compared to the nearly a foot of snow that a lot of spots saw Saturday into Sunday. But again, on top of already slushy or slippery patches that could still cause some issues. So this is going to be in and out pretty quickly, but expect light snow pretty much throughout the remainder of the afternoon into your evening. But once we hit midnight, this will be out of here. So that's the good news with this system. It's in and out very quickly, unlike, again, what we saw over the weekend. Now, skipping ahead just a little bit, could see a few flurries maybe Tuesday afternoon, and then a quick clipper system that looks much weaker will pass by Tuesday night into Wednesday. And that could also bring in pretty light accumulation, not expecting as much even from what we see today for that Wednesday system, but every couple of days, you know, we still have a chance for snow, or we have a lot of activity to still talk about in the weather department here. Again, for what we see tonight or this afternoon and tonight, we're not expecting to see a ton accumulate. It's really just the southern half of our viewing area and more so near the Illinois state line. That could be about an inch, maybe an inch and a half worth of snow with lesser totals up towards the north. This is going to be a very powdery, fluffy snowfall too because our temperatures are colder. Now, speaking of which, because we kind of have to focus on both of these because we do have some big cold or some serious cold to talk about here in the next 6 days. Not awful out there today. We're still in the 20s. It's much colder as you get towards the northwest. And thankfully today there isn't much wind. That's going to change Tuesday and especially Wednesday. Despite the warm up Wednesday to about freezing, which is 32 degrees, our wind chills are going to be even colder because of how strong the wind is going to be. So you'll notice we've got a couple of days today and tomorrow in the 20s. Wind chills will be colder. Then we jump just a little bit Wednesday with that system moving through, but then behind that, we're going to drop even more. So Thursday, high temperatures will only be in the teens, and then we'll kind of regulate back to 20s into early next, or into the weekend, I should say. But with wind and with cold or with snow on the ground, we are in for a pretty chilly stretch of weather. Again, we don't really have a good likelihood of reaching that 32-degree mark with sunshine for at least the next 6 days. So the snow is not going to go anywhere, and we could still be watching some of those icy patches again here or there for the remainder of the week, Carl. So we are wintering right now.
That's for
in
sure.
Southeast Wisconsin.
Because this is the start of meteorological winter, right? December 1st, even though we're waiting on the astronomical one a little bit later in the month.
Yeah, you got it.
I've been
forgot
paying
it's
attention
December
to you.
1st.
Yeah. Since it is, I'll get back to the low temperatures because that's certainly the story for this week. But
Yeah.
since the snow is what everyone was talking about over the weekend and into today, how did we end up for November? Because those were the last couple days of November. We end up with almost a foot of snow in some places. So
Yeah.
I would imagine a pretty snowy month considering what we're used to getting in November.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I need to dig into those stats, but I do know we hit a daily record for snowfall in Milwaukee with that total, which I believe was 9 inches, 8 or 9 inches. I mean, all across Southeast Wisconsin, Carl, we were at least 9 to 12 with some slightly higher totals and, some more isolated pockets. But yes, it will likely go down as one of our snowiest Novembers, certainly hit that record for the day. And then this is just relatively abnormal, especially after the last couple of years having such, we'll call it wimpy winters. This was an early start, and the average for our first inch of snowfall is actually tomorrow. So not only did we hit that milestone a little early, usually it's towards the end of December, early January that we get one of these bigger storm systems. But I think because this dove south and picked up all that moisture from the Gulf, we got some of these really higher snowfall totals. Now going forward, it's more common during the winter to have these quick Alberta clipper systems that move in from Canada. They bring in really cold air. They don't bring in as much snowfall because of the colder air and the less moisture within those. But it's clearly an active start to this season. This doesn't mean the rest of the season is going to be just as active, but I do think it's something for us to monitor here as meteorologists just because of how different it is from the last couple of years.
You read my mind there because I'm sure you, especially being a weather woman there, a meteorologist, unlike me, I've gotten a lot of questions as I have from friends saying, so does this mean we're in for a really brutal winter? Is it going to be snowing all winter long? So there you go. A little too early to say that for sure, even though this is how it's starting.
Yeah, and when we look at the winter outlook, from the Climate Prediction Center, which always gives us a really good, at least synopsis of what they're looking at trends-wise, because we have this, it's a relatively weak La Nina, but that's different from the El Nino we had the past couple of years. It does technically mean that we could see more storm systems. I think it's heavily dependent, though, on, temperatures. If we end up warming up a little bit, it's possible we end up seeing more wintry mix in the future, but at this point, again, we are looking at colder than average temperatures sticking around at least the next couple of weeks, meaning, if we keep getting even these really quick clipper systems that only bring an inch or so, worth of snowfall, that's still going to accumulate over and over without much melting. So it will be as I mentioned previously, just really interesting, I think, to see what happens the rest of this month specifically.
It'll feel festive. We can say that with
yes,
all the Christmas
it will.
lights out and about.
Hopefully in early spring then.
yeah, maybe. One last question for you. Since you have that interesting graphic behind you, it's kind of like the diverging highs and lows, or excuse me, the highs and then the feels like.
Yeah.
But the low temperature certainly caught my attention on FOX6 News 11 with you when you popped up the 6 day, and there were a couple.
Day.
Oh, there we go. Just like that. Ask and you shall receive.
Woohoo.
Yes, single-digit lows coming by the end of this week into the weekend. That's scary stuff.
And I mean, even tonight's lows are going to drop into the teens. So tomorrow morning is going to be a cold and icy start. And look at, that's the trend here. Not only do we have teens the next couple of mornings, then behind that Wednesday system, we're looking at lows in the single digits, but wind chills both of those mornings could be, 15, 20 degrees below zero. So we are now kind of inching towards that territory. Thankfully, it's fairly brief because Saturday, as I move out of the way, we do climb a little bit more, but we're, inching towards, wind chill advisory type criteria with cold like that. So it's just, a little bit of the extremes here. We had the really significant snowstorm. Now we're getting eventually that first taste of really cold, like unseasonably cold air for this part of the season. So a lot going on that we're just going to have to watch very closely and just deal with.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you can't just pray that the sun will take care of your sidewalk for you going forward either, unfortunately. Hey, real quick, since we had you, I just thought of it, and I have the graphic too. You want to shout out where you're going to be tomorrow morning? Appropriate, given all this discussion of winter weather?
Yes, please. We are nearing the end of our Coats for Kids drive. This is our 41st year. We are coming in strong, and we have one more donation event, drive-through donation event. And so this one's out in Brookfield at Landmark Credit Union's headquarters. It's on Executive Drive, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow. It's right in their parking lot. 2 coats. The last one was 4 coats. If you donate 2 coats, you get Admiral ticket vouchers, which to an Admirals game. So really exciting thing to get if you do donate. And we'll be there from 7 to 10 o'clock. The cold's not going to stop us. And I think it's pretty fitting that we have such cold air expected tomorrow morning, because it's just a reminder it's only December 1st, Carl. We have dealt with so much wintry weather, and this is a way that we can really help our kiddos out. We need to look out for them, and not everybody can afford their own coat.
Yeah, Landmark is a new sponsor this year for us, so cool to have that partnership and feature them at this last collection event for the program as well. And we should mention also just the fact that throughout this run of Coats for Kids as well, the groups that do this, Operation Warm, the Salvation Army, they've been doing distribution events as well. So if you donated early, it's a good chance that's already been turned into coats that kids are wearing through this winter storm and through some of the cold. But there's another chance tomorrow to help out as we count down the final days here. All right, Steph. Thank you so much. Go hang out with Steph tomorrow at Landmark Credit Union in Brookfield, as I get to do occasionally here at the station and on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Thanks, Steph, for being with us.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you as always. All right, we'll let her get back to it, although while we're talking cold temperatures and all of the issues coming this week, maybe a good reminder about what we're in for here and some of the resources available. If you are someone who needs a place to stay during cold weather like we're going to see later this week, like Steph said, a lows in the single digits, the wind chill is going to make it actually feel like it's below zero in some cases. There are a number of different warming shelters available for you around the Milwaukee area. The Guest House of Milwaukee on North 13th Street, Unity Lutheran Church on East Oklahoma, Repairers of the Breach on West Vliet Street is a go-to for many, as is the Milwaukee Rescue Mission on North 19th Street and St. Ben's Parish on West State Street. Just some of the options there for you. Now, we should note that the different shelters and resources available there, many of them are open starting about 7 o'clock at night until the following morning, 7 in the morning. Some of them are open for men, others for women, still others are meant for families to go and have a place to go and stay warm if you need it. Just depends on which one of those locations you're going to. So probably the best way to do it is either give them a call, give them a heads up, and you'll be able to determine which one is right for you, or the simple 3 numbers for you. 211 is a great resource for a number of different issues that you might be facing in the area, but you can call 211 to find info on a warming shelter that would be appropriate for you out there if you're interested. And a good reminder too, as we keep that Coats for Kids drive going, think about different different ways that you can help out people in our community during these winter months, as we are very much in it here in Milwaukee. Now, a couple of the other things we could tell you about would be the snow emergency parking rules. Those are in effect still tonight because of the snow emergency in the city of Milwaukee, as well as I imagine much of the county as well. So tonight, odd side parking will be in effect starting at 10 o'clock because today is December 1st, 1 being the odd number there. So 10 p.m. tonight until 6 tomorrow morning, you have to park on the odd side of the street, and that's so that crews can continue their efforts to clear all of the streets, not just the main thoroughfares, but the side streets as well throughout the the city of Milwaukee. And then there you have it at the bottom, no parking on the main streets in the middle, but then different MPS school lots are available from 7 o'clock tonight until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. So that's good news. If you usually park on the street and you're wondering, okay, great, well, where do I go if I can't find a spot on the odd side or a main street? Well, there you go. You can park in a number of different MPS school lots starting tonight at 7 p.m. Of course, your car just has to be out by 7 tomorrow morning because they need it for the teachers and staff to get back to it. And then one other weather-related note here, you should also be aware that garbage and recycling services in the city of Milwaukee are suspended today. So still set your cart out on a regular collection day. You should try to clear snow and ice from the cart and the surrounding areas to help out with the crews. And if it was suspended today for those crews to continue snow clearing efforts, tomorrow regular collection will resume on that Tuesday. So that's what we're looking for going forward here this week. Although the cold, that's going to be here for quite a while, pretty much until the weekend, according to Steph there. All right, we're giving you another live look outside. Time for a break on the Wisconsin Live Desk, 2 minutes, and we'll be right back at it on the other side. Thanks for watching on this cold, snowy Monday afternoon.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Defenbaugh hanging with you here on this Monday afternoon. We give you a live look at the Marquette Interchange, which is looks like moving smoothly for those midday drivers out there. We certainly had plenty of issues on the roads this morning and going back to Saturday because of all the snow, but all seems to be moving smoothly, at least in this part of the Milwaukee area metro system on this afternoon, 1:34. For much more on the efforts, though, we had some of the details on snow clearing efforts, the garbage and recycling suspension suspension of services today, the snow emergency, all of that. And for much more, we go to our Durante Matthews, who joins us now live on the live desk. Looks like he's ready to throw a snowball at someone, so look out if you're going by where he's at today. Durante, I know you're covering the after effects of this winter storm for us. How's it going so far? Looks like a tough day for whoever's trying to move in those U-Haul trucks behind you.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a couple of close calls, a little slip and slides here and there because the ground is very slick in certain parts. But so far, nothing terrible yet. But so we've been out here today. Well, right now we're at 9th and Mitchell over on the city south side of Milwaukee. And we were just speaking with a DPW, the Department of Public Works, just talking to them about how the process has been for them, how has the planning been, cleanup been, and what is next going forward. You know, what can you folks at home really anticipate now that the snow is here, and, you know, what's going to happen to it? So essentially, DPW, they just spoke with me about, you know, this is something that they plan for months in advance. They spend a good part of the summer going over winter preps, essentially. And then, you know, a couple of days before the snow hit at the ground, they actually started to treat the roads. You know, they tried to brine it and everything just so the snow wouldn't actually stick to the ground or form ice bonds. And then now that we had, you know, that big heavy snow on Saturday, we're told that DPW is now in the cleanup phase. So, you know, they say their main priority is treating the main roads first, you know, for first responders as well as people just taking their daily commutes, trying to get home from work. And then they go into those residential areas, which is where they are in now. But, you know, they say they're asking for patience because it's going to take time to hit every residential street, you know, throughout the city. But one of the major things that we have heard people talking about are these huge snow banks over here. You can see they're actually bigger than me that, you know, forms when you push the snow toward the sidewalks. And then how deep inside here there are actually leaves. Folks are wondering, you know, what is going on with the leaf cleanup, because as you know, the city never really got to finish its last round of picking up those leaves. And what's going to happen is, we were told this. So the last day for folks to sort of move those leaf piles on the side streets for the city to come clean up was November 30th. And then after that, the city needs about 2 to 3 weeks to collect all of those leaves. However, the snow fell on Saturday, so that kind of threw a wrench in the plans right here. Now some of those leaves are frozen into these snowbanks. So the city says they are still in their window to get those leaves out from the sidewalks. The issue is now they just have to wait for the snow to actually melt a little bit, which may take some time because the weather is only going to keep getting colder and colder. So they're asking for patience with that, as well as patience to get rid of these snowbanks. So yeah, Carl, I'm sorry, I know I just threw a lot of information at you right now, but it's a process that folks just need to be, you know, in store for.
No, I'm glad you mentioned it, because honestly in my neighborhood we were kind of wondering the same thing. There's big piles of leaves that didn't quite get picked up are now basically turned into like icebergs there on top of the existing snow and the leaves there. So I guess it is time. So there's a commitment from DPW, from what you said, to eventually get those leaves out of there. They just need to wait for it to melt and then kind of get back to that aspect of their work.
Exactly, yeah, they say snow takes priority over anything, snow and ice, and since that's what we're dealing with right now, their main focus is cleaning up the snow. And then they say once, you know, the snow starts to melt a little bit, then they can go back in there and get those leaves. So the leaves, they are still in their window to get those leaves, but that's not the main focus as of right now. The main focus is just, you know, cleaning up the actual snow. And one of the things that we have heard from people is, Carl, you know, when you're, you know, driving on an interstate or you're just driving on the streets and you got to make those left or right turns onto the actual roads? Well, these snowbanks are a little bit of an issue because, you know, they're piling up on the sidewalks and you can't really, you know, see a little bit around where you're turning. So DPW says, you know, they are aware of that, and that is something that they're also going to be tackling shortly, is going back to these medians in the streets as well as the sidewalks and picking up the snow that is on these snowbanks. But again, that's another process where they say, you know, time and patience is going to have to, you know, be a factor with all of this.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as we just heard from our weather expert, Stephanie Barrichello, it's only getting colder this week before we finally get some relief in the temperature department this weekend. So if they're waiting for the snow to melt, they might be waiting for a few more days here. Did you hear anything from DPW about just the sheer amount of snow this early in the season? Because that's something Steph said as well, is like, yes, we get snowfalls like this in the Milwaukee area, but usually they come later in the winter. This one was before we even flipped the calendar to December.
Exactly. Well, they did say, it came earlier than expected because they were preparing, to get rid of these leaves, and now they had to completely change. How you doing there? And now they had to completely, change courses to dealing with this snow. So it caught a lot of people off guard, including DPW. Now, although they had a little bit of time to prepare for it when treating it, but the sheer amount of it is something that, they're still trying to deal with right now.
What's it been like for you guys driving around today? Because I know for me it is that difference kind of between the highway and the side streets, and even where you are off to your right there, it looks like still a nice layer of kind of packed down snow or ice in that road. Those aren't even clear yet.
Are you talking about us driving around for work or in personal cars?
I guess either way.
What experiences with both?
What have you dealt with? Because I know work cars at least got four-wheel drive. I don't know what you're driving for the personal car these days.
Carl, you know how they talk about like the 7 layers of hell? I feel like driving in this has been one of those in my own personal car because I do not have four-wheel drive. So yeah, I've definitely been slipping and sliding just a little bit, but I'm all good. However, my PJ Eddie Poser is a very good driver, so it's been good for us as we have been trucking down these roads. Nothing too bad, although walking on it is something completely different because I have noticed black ice in certain areas like the parking lots and things like that. So you definitely do got to watch your step when you are walking, but driving, I think we have been okay. On these streets right here where you see a lot of slush, we did see people, taking it slow because it looked like their wheels were having a little bit of trouble trying to get a grip on them.
Gotcha. Giving us a report from all facets of work and life. That's our Durante Matthews out and about on the south side near 9th and Mitchell. I hope the driving gets better for you, although I fear that the patches of ice might remain this week given the cold that we're in for, my man.
Just a little bit.
Snow tires, snow tires. Maybe think about that as an early Christmas gift or something for you out there.
Yeah, just more money for me to spend.
Well,
but hey,
there is that aspect as well. We do work in Wisconsin, though, Durante. All right, thank you very much, man. Good luck with your reporting. We'll look for your story the rest of the days on Fox Local here. Appreciate it.
See you. Thank you.
Sometimes a little too honest from our reporters sharing the truth with you here on Fox Local, but hey, there you go. We wish Durante the best driving around the area, and good to know he's with a good photographer there, Eddie, who has four-wheel drive in his vehicle. All right, we're going to take another break here on Fox Local and the Wisconsin Live Desk. Thank you so much for checking it out. The big story of the day and all the different aspects we're covering for you. The winter weather still impacting Wisconsin after that big snowstorm over the weekend, and then what we're in for this week when it comes to the cold and potentially the lack of melting as well. Again, we'll be right back after this on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Thanks for watching here on this Monday.
Live Desk.
Hey, Carl Deffenbaugh back with you on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Thanks for hanging with us here on Fox Local, fox6now.com, or the Fox 6 Milwaukee YouTube channel. However you're joining us here on this Monday, great to have you with us. We will be here until 3:30, as we are each and every day. I'm here till 2:30, then Ben Handelman takes the reins, which is a good phrase to use, I guess, during the holiday season, of course, with Santa coming to town relatively soon. We give you a live look outside again in downtown Milwaukee, kind of a dreary, gray. I guess you could combine it to be dreary there Monday afternoon with more snow on the way. Today into this evening, Stephanie Barrichello told us momentarily ago that we will get some more flurries tonight, maybe upwards of an inch accumulated in total. Light, fluffy snow compared to the wet stuff that we got over the weekend, and certainly not anywhere near the sheer amount that we got on Saturday into Sunday as well throughout so much of southeastern Wisconsin. But this week is going to continue to have some rounds of snow for us, and especially the cold temperatures that will be an issue for so many out and about around the area today. A couple things that we are tracking for you here at this hour, just to give you a heads up of what's coming on the Wisconsin Live Desk. This is supposed to be a press briefing with the House Minority Leader right now, Hakeem Jeffries. Supposed to happen sometime after 2 o'clock or so, and since we carried so much of the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt for you on the Republican side, the administration side of things, we'll be curious to hear what Representative Jeffries is discussing today and what some of the talking points for the Democrats in Congress will be on this Monday afternoon, December 1st, of course, where our nation's capital certainly does not have the snow that we do here in the Midwest. Looks like a sunshine and bright blue sky day there over the U.S. Capitol building. But as soon as Hakeem Jeffries steps to the podium, we'll try to get that for you. We also are awaiting our local political reporter, Jason Calvi here at Fox 6, is going to join us after 2 o'clock or so, discussing the impending end of Affordable Care Act subsidies at the end of this calendar year. Now that we're in December, that's coming at the end of the month, of course, played such a role in the long-standing government shutdown, the longest in U.S. history, the affordability of health care in this country and what's going to change come January 1st when those subsidies in what is also known as Obamacare expire. They were extended during the COVID-19 pandemic. That extension runs out at the end of the month, and Jason's been diving into a series of numbers for you on what that will look like and some of the efforts here, including at least some discussion from Republicans on a possible extension of those subsidies. Democrats would be all for that. Remains to be seen what Republicans, still in control of all three branches, two branches of Congress and the White House, may decide to do before the end of the year. So a lot of that coming for you today. One other historical note that I wanted to make sure we did not miss today, December 1st, such a notable one in U.S. history because of what happened in a quiet moment of protest. Let me do the math for you. 70 years ago today, that would be December 1st of 1955, when Rosa Parks made what turned out to be an absolutely brave, historic move, refusing to give up her seat to a white man on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, a city bus. She was a black seamstress. December 1st, 1955, refused to give up her seat and moved to the back of the bus, as was the requirement there in Montgomery, Alabama. That incident sparked a year-long boycott of the buses and helped really fuel the U.S. civil rights movement, which we know would play out in many different ways over the years, more than a decade later, when you get into some of the landmark civil rights laws that go into effect. But December 1st, 1955, such an absolutely powerful move by Rosa Parks on that day 70 years ago today. This is the post from the local Milwaukee County Transit System, which, as you're seeing, for 10 years now, has been saving a seat for Rosa Parks on their buses as a way of remembering and honoring her legacy. So the post from Ride MCTS here in the Milwaukee County area says this year marks 10 years of saving a seat for Rosa Parks. From December 1st to 3rd, every MCTS bus will feature a reserved seat with a red rose and a tribute sign honoring her courage and legacy. We are also offering a $1,000 Rosa Parks Tribute Scholarship for Milwaukee County High School seniors planning to continue their education in 2026. So if you are a senior looking for a little bit of financial assistance, you can check out the Rosa Parks Scholarship link in the bio there for Ride MCTS and ways to get more information. MCTS, the transit system, asking you to join them as they honor her impact on this anniversary day, 70 years in the making. And it's always powerful to hear the winners of that Rosa Parks Tribute Scholarship here in Milwaukee County. Some really impressive young men and women going on to big things from our great city here in Milwaukee over the years that they've been doing this. And neat to see a decade of tribute from MCTS honoring 70 years since Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. A move, a quiet one at the time, that really helped trigger so much more, leading to a year-long boycott to support her, and then eventually the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. That was a key moment in time in American history, bringing equality to many, although the fight continues for many for years to come, and 70 years later since that moment, December 1st of 1955. So just wanted to mention that before we take another break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. What a day it is for so many, and important to take a moment and honor the legacy of Rosa Parks and all that she did in that act 70 years ago. All right, another quick break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Much more to come of both your local and national news following this 2-minute break.
Live Desk.
Carl Defenbaugh back with you here as we get closer to 2 o'clock on this Monday afternoon, 1:53 here in Milwaukee, 27 degrees as well. As we cover a few of the different stories happening around the country for you, I want to get you up to speed on a couple things before we bring it back to the local side of things here on Fox Local, of course. This is a view outside of a New York City courtroom where Luigi Mangione is back in court today for a hearing, as prosecutors in this case are trying to argue about the use of surveillance video in this upcoming trial against the man accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, on a New York City sidewalk right outside of a hotel room in a very public incident last year. So what's happening today? He appeared in court, according to the reporters covering this for the Associated Press, watching stoically in court as prosecutors played surveillance video showing the actual killing of the United Healthcare CEO, as well as the arrest of Luigi Mangione 5 days later at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. Now, the videos, including footage from a restaurant previously unseen by the press or the public, kicked off this hearing today on Mangione's fight and his legal team's fight to bar certain evidence from his state murder trial, which includes the gun that prosecutors say matches the one used in the attack and killing of the United Healthcare CEO December 4th of 2024, so almost a year to the date. Mangione, who is 27 years old, pressed a finger to his lips and a thumb to his chin as he watched footage of two police officers approaching him while he ate breakfast at that McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which is about 230 miles outside of Manhattan, west of Manhattan. He also watched as prosecutors played a 911 call from a McDonald's manager that relayed concerns from customers that the person in that restaurant, Luigi Mangione, looked a lot like the suspect in Brian Thompson's killing. The manager said that she searched online for photos of the suspect and that as Mangione was sitting in the restaurant, she could only see his eyebrows because he was wearing a beanie and a medical face mask. Among the evidence, though, that the defense team in support of Luigi Mangione want excluded are that gun, a 9mm handgun, as well as a notebook in which prosecutors say Mangione described his intent to, quote, whack a health insurance executive. Both were found in a backpack that Mangione had with him when he was arrested. Now, after getting state terrorism charges thrown out back in September, the defense team is now zeroing in on what they say was unconstitutional police conduct, threatening his right to a fair trial. So the defense attorneys contend that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office should be prevented from showing the gun or the notebook, as well as other items, to jurors when that trial eventually begins, because police did not have a warrant to search the backpack. They also want to suppress some of the statements that Mangione made to police, such as when he allegedly gave a different name because officers started asking questions before telling him that he did have that legal right to remain silent. Prosecutors say Mangione gave the same name when he checked into a Manhattan hostel days before the killing. And as this is still being decided for the trial, it's a big question because eliminating the gun and the notebook, well, those would be critical wins for the defense team and a major setback for prosecutors, depriving them of the possible murder weapon as well as evidence that they say points to a motive. Now, prosecutors have quoted extensively from Mangione's own writings in their court filings, including his praise, allegedly, for the late Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber. Among other things, prosecutors say Mangione mused in his diary about rebelling against, quote, the deadly greed-fueled health insurance cartel, and wrote that killing an industry executive conveys a quote, greedy bastard that had it coming. An officer searching the backpack found that Mangione was heard in body camera footage as well, saying that she was checking to make sure there, quote, wasn't a bomb in the bag. His defense attorneys, though, still argue that that was an excuse designed to cover up an illegal, warrantless search of the backpack. And this could be pivotal. This pretrial hearing could last more than a week, as court officials say that could extend through the anniversary, which is coming Thursday, 1 year since the killing took place. We'll see what happens from this, though, as Luigi Mangione is in this New York courtroom today. There is also a podium with a few microphones set up outside, so if any of the attorneys, either on the prosecution or the defense side of it, step to that podium with thoughts and description of what happened in the courtroom today, we will certainly bring that to you here live on the Wisconsin Live Desk. But wanted to get you up to speed because that's something happening actually right now out on the East Coast in New York City. Something else that we are following, also from New York City, very big place, lots going on a Monday afternoon, would be what is supposed to be an appearance from the mayor-elect of New York City, as well as Senator Bernie Sanders at this rally for Starbucks workers. So this is coming, and getting you up to speed on a few different things here, but this is coming as, Bernie Sanders and Zoran Mamdani are supposed to make their own remarks at this rally from Starbucks workers in New York City. So this is coming as both men are expected to speak potentially around 2 o'clock or so. Starbucks apparently will pay over $35 million to over 15,000 New York City employees, settling claims that the company had denied them stable schedules. And the mayor-elect, along with the senator, expected to speak around 2 o'clock with those striking workers today on December 1st, in the middle of the holiday rush, of course, for the major coffee chain here. When that happens, we'll try to bring you that as well. A couple different things potentially happening around 2 o'clock today here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. That's Central Time, 3 o'clock out there in New York City. So we'll see what happens today. It comes as earlier in the day, the outgoing mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, who lost his bid for re-election amid controversy as well in connection to the Trump administration, as well as the city's Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, announced that settlement between Starbucks and company workers. There was actually a multi-year investigation that played into this, conducted by that department, that found Starbucks committed, quote, more than 500,000 violations of the law since 2011. And in this case, it was deemed that they illegally denied workers the right to stable schedules and then would arbitrarily cut their hours as well. So as part of this settlement, about $35.5 million will be paid to workers harmed by those unlawful practices, and $3.4 million will be paid in civil penalties and other costs as well. So over 50 Starbucks locations in New York City actually closed without warnings in October of this year. Included in those stores, hundreds of them around the country, were 54, in fact, in New York City. So this is now the follow-up to that. The company also apparently failing to offer replacement jobs to city workers affected by those many closures. The City of New York's Fair Work Week law dictates that employees from closing stores must be offered a job at a location in the same borough. Those employees are also entitled to first choice of any job openings in the vicinity of their original job. But instead, not only were those shops closed, they were closed with little to no notice to the landlords, and the employees sent scrambling as well. So again, this is a march today in support of those Starbucks workers after an announcement of a major settlement between the City of New York and the company for a number of different issues, and supposed to have a couple big names joining with this protest sometime in the near future here. That would be Senator Bernie Sanders, as well as the incoming mayor-elect of New York City, Zohran Mamdani. So if we get that for you here during the Wisconsin Live Desk, we will carry that for you, of course. But for now, it appears this still continuing with the protests and the marches there outside of one Starbucks location in New York City, and questions still for the company after this settlement. All right, while that continues in the Big Apple, we're going to bring it back here locally to Milwaukee. A live shot of downtown from the Modern camera there. You can see how gray it is out there. More snow in the forecast today. A quick break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. We'll be back with you in 2 minutes.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Carl Devenbaugh back with you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, just past the 2 o'clock hour, 2:05, and we want to get you right to Representative Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, who we mentioned would step to the podium. He just did moments ago while we were in break, so let's get out to Representative Jeffries, who's starting his address to the media with a discussion of healthcare costs in America and the potential rising costs for so many following the expiration of Affordable Care Act subsidies that could happen at the end of this year. So let's listen in to Representative Jeffries discussing health care with the American people and the media today.
Time has run out on Republican inaction. They have done nothing over the last 60 days but stumble, fumble, and bumble as it relates to addressing the healthcare crisis that they've created. Understand that this year, House Republicans enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. These extremists have thrown 14 million people off of Medicaid. At the same period of time, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing all throughout the country, including in rural America, because of what Republicans have done in their one big ugly bill. They've launched an unprecedented assault on the Centers for Disease Control and the National Institute of Health, jeopardizing the well-being of the American people. Vaccines are increasingly unavailable in the United States of America. Children are getting sick unnecessarily all across the country. And now on top of all of that, that parade of horribles, Republicans refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which are going to expire this month. Time has run out on Republicans playing partisan games. We have a discharge petition that if it received an up or down vote in the House of Representatives, we are confident will pass. But obviously, Mike Johnson has zero interest in protecting the health care of the American people. Instead, these extremists are gutting the health care of the people that they represent, including in the state of Louisiana.
Senate Democrats next week will be able to put up a vote for the ACA subsidies. Do you think there's any plan that Republicans would actually get on board with to have a bipartisan bill? And if not, what should Democrats put up on the floor of the Senate?
There are Republicans in the House and the Senate who, during the Trump Republican shutdown, consistently said that once the shutdown ends that they caused, that they'd be willing to address the healthcare crisis that they've created. Most immediately by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Now, we had nothing but crickets from them. It even appears that the Trump administration was ready to put forth a plan that would at least have been worthy of consideration, and that Mike Johnson tanked it. So now, Mike Johnson wants to act like he's the Speaker of the House? Really, when it comes to the health care of the American people and possibly doing something bipartisan, he wants to act like he's in control, when the reality is he's done nothing but bend the knee to Donald Trump since January 20th. I mean, House Republicans have been nothing but a rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme agenda since January 20th. And when it appears that Donald Trump actually might be willing to enter into a good faith bipartisan negotiation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, House Republicans detonate the agreement. These people aren't serious about anything other than providing massive tax breaks to their billionaire donors. That's not a hypothetical statement. That's not hype. That's not hyperbole. It happened. They enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. They ripped food out of the mouths of hungry children. and seniors and veterans this year in their one big ugly bill. $186 billion cut to SNAP. And why did they do all of that? So they could reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks. And so the extremists are just showing the American people who they are. And as a result, the only viable path forward, it appears, in the House and in the Senate, is a straight extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Let's see what Senate Democrats put on the floor next week, and we'll continue to press our case on our side of the Capitol.
Thank you, Leader.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if there's been any kind of formal or informal back channeling with Republicans who might be supportive of the discharge petition going on at all.
Well, you had 13 Republicans a few weeks ago indicate in a letter that they wrote to Deputy Speaker Mike Johnson that as soon as their shutdown was over, they wanted to address the Affordable Care Act tax credits. But now it's nothing but silence from these people because they're not serious about helping the American people, the hardworking American taxpayers that they purport to represent. This has become painfully obvious to the American people, which is why Republicans are getting wiped out electorally all across the country, as we saw last month. Literally in every single state in the union, destroyed up and down the ballot across the country. Statewide races to local races and everything in between. Because the American people are done with these people. They've been a disaster. They lied about fighting the low or the high cost of living. Instead, they've just jammed their extreme right-wing policies down the throats of the American people who are being hurt as a result. And, you know, our view about the situation, as we've repeatedly said, is that we're open to finding a bipartisan path forward. But the extremists continue to refuse to take yes for an answer. They had an opportunity, right, to accept a very reasonable proposal that Leader Schumer put on the table a few weeks ago, which was a straight one-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits, and then a bipartisan commission to discuss improvements to the health care of the American people over a multi-year period of time. What was objectionable about that? Well, Republican extremists rejected it because they have no interest in doing anything to make life better for working class Americans, everyday Americans, and hardworking American taxpayers. And that's a shame.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. On the discharge petition, is it your expectation that all House Democrats will sign as of today? I believe 212 of 213 have signed. Is it your expectation that all members of your caucus will sign it? And following up on the question about back channel conversations, is it your position that the fact that the subsidies expire in 30 days, the urgency that you say, you know, the moment requires, is that enough for Republicans to sign on, or will it require some proactive conversations on the part of House Democrats to get them to break ranks with leadership and sign on to this effort?
Well, there certainly haven't been any leadership conversations because Mike Johnson has zero interest in protecting the health care of the American people, and he's repeatedly made that clear. Now, in terms of whether there are conversations member to member between the House Democratic Caucus and members of the House Republican Conference, there certainly have been some informal conversations led by folks like Tom Suozzi, who has floated a 2-year proposal with some, you know, modest reforms that we'd have to take a look at. But there's no indication that even that proposal has support from House Republican leadership. These people have zero interest in making life better for everyday Americans. And they repeatedly make that clear. They're in the face of the American people about it. Meanwhile, you got Donald Trump issuing reckless pardons, destroying half of the White House, bailing out Argentina. posting erratically on Thanksgiving. Like, this guy can't even give us a break on Thanksgiving when we're with our families. And the American people have had enough of it. These people have gone way too far. They've broken every single promise that they've had. And so I guess we can always hope that there are a handful of Republicans who will actually do what they said that they would do once their shutdown ended, which is to work with Democrats to find a path forward. But that path right now is an extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. I think our discharge petition in record time is now up to about 212, 213. It is my expectation that we will have complete and total unity amongst House Democrats. Thanks.
You just mentioned how Republicans are getting wiped out across the country. We've seen that in past elections. What's your expectation tomorrow in Tennessee? Do you think that the Democrat there could potentially pull it off, given the polling that we have seen in recent weeks?
Seems to me that it's going to be an unexpectedly close election, a single-digit election. That's shocking. In deep red Tennessee, Mark Green's district. By the way, this is a district literally that Donald Trump just won by 22 points last November. This is not a district that anyone believes should be competitive. No rational person believes this district should be competitive. And yet, it's apparently very competitive. It's going to be a much closer than expected race. Republicans have already lost. The fact that they are spending millions of dollars to hold a seat that Donald Trump just won by 22 points is extraordinary, and more evidence that Republican extremists are completely and totally on the run because they have failed the American people. And it's Democrats who are making the case all over the country that we are actually the ones fighting to lower the high cost of living, fighting to fix our broken health care system, and fighting to clean up the type of corruption that has the American people disgusted. What I don't understand is that Republicans keep doubling and tripling down on their extremism, and it ain't working. They are losing all over the place. Donald Trump's approval rating in the most recent Gallup poll is 36%. 60% of the American people disapprove of this guy. He's a disaster. And now the president and Mike Johnson are holding a rally tonight in Mark Green's district that Trump just won by 22 points because they're scared to death about what could happen. If these people, these extremists, were actually rational.
Well, Representative Jeffries there continues his remarks and focus on health care in Washington, D.C. and what the Republican counterparts will or will not discuss with him in Congress. Let's get you back to New York City. I mentioned the incoming mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani, as well as Senator Bernie Sanders, were speaking at a rally for Starbucks workers after a major settlement between the company and the city of New York. Let's listen in.
This afternoon, numbers that I hope will place this struggle into some sense of perspective. $36.2 billion. That is the amount of money that Starbucks made in revenue just last year. $95.8 million. That's the compensation package that Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol earned for 4 months of work last year. 6,666. That is how much times larger Niccol's pay was than the average Starbucks barista's salary. 400. That is how many labor law violations the NLRB has found that Starbucks has committed. 120. That's the amount of stores that are on strike, and 85, the number of cities that they are taking place in. Now, what these numbers show us are a two-pronged picture. On one side, corporate greed and self-enrichment at the cost of its own workers, and on the other, remarkable solidarity by those workers who have been exploited and mistreated time and time again. Solidarity, as much as we speak of it, we have to remember, is not an abstract concept. It is measured in picket lines, stood on in the rain and in the sleet. It is measured in rent payments that workers do not know if they will be able to meet, childcare bills they do not know whether they will be able to afford. And it is measured in strangers who have never met one another, linking arms to fight for a shared goal and a fairer future. Because how else could we describe being on a picket line with Starbucks workers, alongside workers of 32BJ, alongside workers from HTC, alongside workers from WGA, alongside workers from every single sector across this city, because we understand that no matter our trade, we are workers at the end of the day. And I am proud to be here today, and proud that senior members of my transition team and administration have joined Starbucks picket lines in the days and weeks prior. And I am proud to stand here alongside incredible elected officials at the city level, at the state level, and also to my left, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Because all of us are united in the belief that we must build a New York where every worker can live a life of decency. We must build a New York where our words do not ring hollow as we say that this is a union town. And we must build a New York where the workers who power it are able to afford to live in it. Thank you so much. And now, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Well, it is an honor for my wife and me to be here with you, to stand with striking Starbucks workers who are telling this company they are sick and tired of corporate greed and sick and tired of union busting.
That's right.
And what the mayor-elect just pointed out is that what is happening here on this picket line is happening all over this country. We are living in an economy where the people on top have never, ever had it so good. You got one man owning more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households. And while the CEOs make unbelievable salaries, 60% of our people in Vermont, in New York City, all over this country are living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay the rent, struggling to pay for health care, struggling to put food on the table. And what Zoran and I are dedicated to is creating a nation and an economy which works for all of us, not just the 1%. So I just want to thank the Starbucks workers for their courage here and around this country. We are going to prevail. Thank you very much.
Just before we take a question, since I know we have some friends here with us, if we can first have a round of applause for the Starbucks workers themselves.
While that address continues in New York City with the mayor-elect and Senator Bernie Sanders there addressing workers, we do have to take a quick break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Fit in another 2 minutes. We'll see if we can catch some of the questions or get you back to Representative Hakeem Jeffries or anything else happening in what is turning out to be a busy mid-afternoon here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Back in 2 minutes. Well, thanks for sticking with us.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Deffenbaugh checking in just before 2:30. Ben Handelman will handle the final hour of Wild for us here on this Monday afternoon. Still a lot to get to here as we give you another live look at downtown Milwaukee. Boy, those clouds have really set in. Can't even make out a bit of the sun on the horizon that we had earlier in the day, but the snow is certainly here. More of it on the way, though not the grand totals that we got over the weekend, and then the cold will follow that this week as well. And we'll have another check-in with Stephanie Barkello, our weather expert, coming up over that final hour of Wild. One of the other things that we are tracking here is supposed to be an address from Senator Mark Kelly, a Democrat from Arizona, holding a press conference this afternoon responding to the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth's threat to court-martial him after Kelly appeared in a controversial video with other Democratic lawmakers telling active duty military members to refuse orders if those orders are in fact illegal. I'm wondering too if some of the recent updates from Venezuela will play into this. We heard the Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, addressing the question of whether or not Hegseth and military members committed a war crime when they had a follow-up second strike on a suspected Venezuelan drug boat, despite the fact that a first strike had left that boat incapacitated and 2 people surviving the first strike in the water in the wreckage as well. So Senator Mark Kelly supposed to address the media coming up momentarily, something else we might try to get for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. But in the meantime, we're going to get you back to New York, where Zohran Mamdani, the mayor-elect of the Big Apple, along with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, are addressing striking Starbucks workers there today.
In speaking with Senator Sanders, is the focus always has to come back to working people. And when you ask these Starbucks workers what the consequences are of a company that refuses to schedule them with any predictability, of a company that refuses to pay them a wage that they can actually afford to live in this city, it is that they do not know if they can call themselves New Yorkers any longer. And I am tired of walking into buildings in this city, meeting the workers there, asking them how long their commute was, and hearing that they in fact live in New Jersey. They live in Pennsylvania. They live in places that they can afford the rent, they can afford the mortgage. That place has to become New York City once again.
Do you think it inspired them? I was speaking with workers before you arrived, and they say that many of the scheduling issues addressed in the settlement actually haven't been addressed. It'll be up to your city hall to follow up on that. Will your city hall follow up? And if you could, sir, a comment on the casinos passed today. I know you have objections, but said you would not stand in the way. Is that still your position?
So to your first question, absolutely, my administration will follow up on this. And to your second question, I've expressed my skepticism and my own questions around the economic development that is often tied to casinos. And also I respect the will of voters who voted for this in a referendum. And I look forward to the prospect of working with unions to ensure that every job created is one that is actually a union job and that creates for a dignified life.
All right, Bern, let's go.
While the questions continue in New York City, a bit of a change of plan here. Ted Perry will be handling third-hour duties for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk in exchange for Ben Handelman. So we're going to let this ride as we do our handoff. Ted Perry will be with you after this on the final hour of the Wisconsin Live Desk. Thanks a lot for watching and listening on this Monday afternoon, and much more to come with Mr. Perry after we do this little handoff. Thanks.
I'm not worried about the hypotheticals at this time. What I can tell you is that every single day from now until I become the mayor and then after that is going to be focused on how we can improve the working conditions for workers across the city and the conditions for every person who calls the city their home.
I wanted to see if you could respond to these allegations that Irfan Verji offered a job in your administration or a job in your transition team in exchange for donors to your super PAC.
So I do not know this man. I can be very clear and direct with you that the days of pay-to-play politics are coming to an end with my administration. We are an administration that will staff up on the basis of excellence, on the basis of outcomes, not on the basis of relationships.
All right, Sarah, over here.
Hi, Mayor-elect. You're going to be mayor in 1 month, and I'm wondering if you could lay out for us for your first year how you're going to prioritize what you're going to tackle first.
I can tell you.
That's an easy question,
Very
right?
easy question. The core of it is going to be on affordability. the core of it is going to be on fulfilling the central 3 campaign promises. There are many here. In fact, I think, Kai, you were saying that you were actually on stage with us at the Forest Hills rally, where we celebrated alongside Senator Sanders what this campaign really is about. It's a campaign that is about freezing the rent for rent-stabilized tenants, about making buses fast and free, and delivering universal child care. It's a campaign that will be done in tandem with federal partners, with city council partners like Alexa Aviles and Tiffany Caban, who are here today, as well as with state partners like Assemblywoman Claire Valdez, who I think is also here today. And every single day has to be spent towards fulfilling that agenda, and then also, as was being said earlier, to ensuring that we are fully following through with the protections that New Yorkers already have, but are seldom actually utilized. We are speaking about laws being broken in this country and in this city, and yet so many corporations do so because they know they will never be held accountable. When we think about wage theft in this city, it is something that is rarely treated with the kind of seriousness of other levels of crime. We have to treat it all as something worthy of our attention.
All right, Sarah, go ahead. Can I ask a question? Sir, I'm sorry. Many of the workers in this city are immigrants. When you met with President Trump, did you get a concession from him around ICE raids and not moving into this city? And then I have a question for Bernie Sanders. And that question is, do you think if you succeed with your Fight Club and other senators,
With our what?
if you succeed with the Fight Club and other senators who support your mission to unseat the minority leader, Chuck Schumer, it will open up space for progressive candidates that represent what the two of you stand for today?
You want to go first?
I'll go first. When I met with the president, I made very clear that these kinds of raids are cruel and inhumane, that they are raids that do nothing to serve the interests of public safety, and that my responsibility is to be the mayor to each and every person that calls this city their home. And that includes millions of immigrants, of which I am one. And I am proud that I will be the first immigrant mayor of this city in generations, and prouder still for the fact that I will live up to the statue that we have in our harbor and the ideals which we have long proclaimed as being those of this city, but which have too often been ones we do not actually enforce and celebrate on a daily basis. And that is who I will be as the mayor of this city.
In terms of what we're trying to do in the Senate, I think it is no great secret there are differences of opinion.
Hi, everybody. Ted Perry. We are going to take you away from that Starbucks rally with the senator and the mayor-elect of New York City and get you to Mark Kelly, who, Senator Mark Kelly, former astronaut, former Navy pilot, responding to criticism from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Let's give a listen.
Opponents into silence. He did it as a failed casino owner who bankrupted his properties and screwed over his contractors. He did it as a reality TV host known for firing people. And he's done it as president who tries every day to intimidate people with no regards for the rights or well-being of the American people. I'll say this for the guy. While he's never seemed to do much else right, for most of Donald Trump's career, bullying people has worked out for him. But not now. Because I won't let it happen. The American people won't let it happen. President Trump is trying to silence me, threatening to kill me for saying what is true. And he sent his Secretary of Defense after me. And it's not going to work. Here's how we got here. A week and a half ago, Senator Slotkin and I, along with others who also served in the military and the intelligence communities, we released a video with a simple message to service members that they must refuse illegal orders. Nothing was controversial about that. Everyone must follow the law. No one may break the law. This is pretty basic stuff. Seeing that video, here's how any other president would have responded. They would have said 2 words, "Of course." But that's not how this president responded. We've become so accustomed to Donald Trump's behavior that it is worth emphasizing. The President of the United States said that 2 U.S. senators and 4 members of the House of Representatives should be arrested, hanged, executed for something we said, for something that is true. My family knows the cost of political violence. My wife, Gabby, was shot in the head and nearly died while speaking with her constituents. The president should understand this too. He has been the target of political violence himself. The Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives, Melissa Hortman, and her husband were murdered in their home this year. The governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, had his house firebombed this year. Then Charlie Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University, a place I visited just a few weeks ago with Republican Senator John Curtis. Faced with a wave like this, every other president we have ever had in the history of this nation would have tried to heal the country. But we all know Donald Trump. He uses every single opportunity to divide us. And that's dangerous. The president's words carry tremendous weight. People listen to him. And he knows that. And that's exactly why he does what he does. He makes these threats to silence people. And if that doesn't work, he abuses his power to intimidate people. And with the consent of Republicans in the United States Senate, he has surrounded himself with people like the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who will do whatever he says with no question, no matter what. Trump and Hegseth, they care more about publicity than they do about the rule of law. That's how I ended up finding out via a tweet that the Secretary of Defense was ordering an investigation into me. The same Secretary of Defense who has, from the moment he was nominated, has been historically unqualified for this position. The same Secretary of Defense who is reported to have ordered a second strike to kill shipwreck survivors in the Caribbean. If there is anyone who needs to answer questions in public and under oath, it is Pete Hegseth. It's a dangerous moment for the United States of America when the president and his loyalists use every lever of power to silence United States senators for speaking up. But we all know that this isn't about me, and it's not about the others in that video. They're trying to send a message to retired service members, to government employees, to members of the military, to elected officials, and to all Americans who are thinking about speaking up. You better keep your mouth shut or else. This has been a singular focus of President Trump's second term. Not addressing costs, not creating jobs, intimidating people, and going after the people he views as his political opponents. He's done it to companies. You better write a check to build my ballroom, or I might not approve your merger. He's done it with universities. You better fire your president, or I'll pull your research funding. He's even done it to late night hosts. You better not make jokes that I do not like, or I'll get you taken off the air, and I'm going to take your company's broadcast license. And he does it every week with Republicans in the House and the Senate. You better toe the party line, or I'll make sure you never get reelected. Folks, this comes at a cost. And not only to American companies, colleges, and comedians. It damages every American's freedom of speech and the balance of powers that form the foundation of our democracy. Because when Republicans in Congress are too afraid to disagree with this president, it means that his bad ideas go unchallenged. He has slapped reckless tariffs on countries across the globe, skyrocketing the cost of everything from groceries to school supplies. Republicans historically, well, at least a year ago, they hated tariffs. But when it comes to voting to undo them, they are too afraid of Donald Trump. So Americans pay more for just about everything because of spineless politicians. It's the same with healthcare costs. There are Republicans in the House and the Senate who really want to do something to prevent these healthcare premiums from spiking for millions of Americans. The solutions are simple, but President Trump says he doesn't want to, so nothing happens. Nothing except a government shutdown. It goes on and on. The president has gone too far. Everybody needs to wake up. The occupant of the Oval Office is ignorant to the Constitution and has no regard for the rule of law. In trying to silence me, in proposing to court-martial me, in threatening to kill me, for fighting back when our democracy demands that we must fight back. President Trump has crossed a line. And this time, it's not going to work. I will not be intimidated by this president. I am not going to be silenced by this president or the people around him, because I've given too much in service to this country to back down to this guy. In 1991, when Donald Trump was driving the Taj Mahal casino into bankruptcy, I was getting shot at over Iraq and Kuwait. In 2001, after Donald Trump said that the collapse of the Twin Towers meant he now owned the tallest skyscraper in Manhattan, I was carrying flags honoring 9/11 victims into space on a rocket ship. In 2003, when Donald Trump was writing birthday greetings to the monster Jeffrey Epstein, I was the first on the scene to recover the bodies of my fellow astronauts who died when Space Shuttle Columbia exploded during re-entry. In 2011, when Trump was hosting a reality show and peddling conspiracy theories against President Barack Obama, I was sitting next to my wife's hospital bed as she recovered from a gunshot wound to the head. My point is this: I've been through a lot worse in service to my country. The president and Pete Hegseth are not going to silence me. They aren't going to keep me from speaking out, and they're not going to keep me from doing my job. Enough of the bullying, enough of the intimidation, enough of the threats, enough of your nonsense. Doesn't help anyone in our country afford their groceries or pay their medical bills, and it erodes the rights of every American. My job is to fight for them, to stand up for the Constitution, and nothing is going to stop me from doing my job. Thank you, and I'll take some questions. Hold on a second. Give me that folder right there. Just sit this down here. Can you, well, I know it's Manu from CNN, but for everybody, just starting with you, just say who you are, you know, what station.
The White House said today that Admiral Bradley gave the order for that second strike on the Venezuelan boat. They also said this was a lawful strike. Yesterday, you said the second strike could be a war crime. Do you think that Bradley committed a war?
Let me just start, Manu, by saying that there needs to be an investigation. We need to pull some of these members of DOD and the military into the armed services committees in the House and the Senate. You know, that's what the White House is saying. I hope what has been reported is not accurate. I revere members of the United States Navy, especially special operators, Navy SEALs. These are the most highly trained, you know, individuals in our military. I have deep, deep respect for them. So I hope what we are hearing is not accurate. I will say, though, you know, as somebody who has sunk 2 ships myself, that folks in the military need to understand, you know, the law of the sea, the Geneva Conventions, what the law says. And I'm concerned that if there were, in fact, as reported, you know, survivors clinging to a damaged vessel, that could be, you know, over a line. I hope it's not the case. I truly do.
Should Admiral Bradley resisted that order?
Again, I am, you know, not sure of all the facts yet. I don't want to prejudge before we have all the information. I think it's important for there to be an investigation. The Inspectors General of DOD needs to investigate this, unfortunately.
We are going to continue to monitor. This is Senator Mark Kelly taking questions from the media now. But I want to recap. If you're just joining us, good afternoon, by the way, 2:49. Ted Perry with you on Fox Local. That was a remarkable few minutes from Senator Kelly of Arizona. And you, as you watched that, I'm wondering if you were wondering the same thing I was, and that is, that's just not a speech by a man who is fighting for his reputation and to clear his name of any wrongdoing. It's a guy that might be getting into the next presidential race because he came out swinging on the president. The background here, Mark Kelly is one of 2 senators, along with 4 members of the House of Representatives, all veterans, who came out recently with a video addressed to members of the military to remind them that they do not have to follow, key word here, illegal orders from the president. Much has been made of that. Those 6 have been called the seditious 6. President Trump has blasted them numerously, a number of times on social media. And you heard Mark Kelly said, President Trump is trying to silence me by threatening to kill me. Words that the president later backtracked on, but was part of one of his posts on Truth Social that's saying they were all guilty of seditious behavior punishable by death. The president later backpedaled on that a little bit, but the point that Kelly has made is that he did say it. He threatened to kill me and 5 others of my colleagues. He went on to attack Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, who has insinuated that it might be time for a court-martial to get Kelly back into uniform. He's a civilian now, of course, but if he were to go back into uniform, to set him up for a court-martial. And to that, you heard Kelly call Pete Hegseth unqualified. And he said the president has gone too far and everyone needs to wake up, and that he has, quote, he, meaning Kelly, has given too much to this country to back down to this guy, a reference to the president. Some extraordinary words today that perhaps sends this story back in a different narrative, because we haven't heard a lot from Kelly outside of that video, but today you're looking and hearing from a man who is fed up with the attacks and the threats and the death threats against him. So we'll continue to monitor this, because this will be a newsmaker on this Monday, this first day of December. Also making news locally, the weather once again. How fun was Saturday, right? Well, fun is in the eye of the beholder as we cut away from that. When we come back, Stephanie Barrichello with, I don't know, do we call it round two? Do we call it an after dinnerment of snowstorms? I'm going to let Stephanie decide how big of a deal this is, because that's what she does better than I do. So she probably does a million things better than I do, let's be honest. But we'll start with that. On the other side of this break, we'll hear from
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Let me show you, let me take you outside right now and show you what the mamas and the papas meant when they sang rainy days and Mondays always get me down. Not a rainy day, but a cloudy one, but look at that. Notice anything above the horizon there? An airplane. That's a rare shot that we get an airplane flying through or above. Actually, it's above Lake Michigan. It's not above downtown, matter of perspective here. But you can see what a gloomy gust day it is out there. Gray skies, cloudy skies, and more snowfall on the way. And for that, we bring in Stephanie Barrichello with more gray landscape behind you there. Yep. I'm not even sure which shot that is. Do we know what shot that is behind you?
It's our brown deer camera.
That's our brown deer
yeah,
camera.
Yeah, so it's zoomed in on the intersection,
Green
Bay and Brown Deer Road.
Oh, that's right. That's our intersection,
it is.
Right out there. Okay. Yeah. Saturday, I'm going to say Saturday was fun. Because it was fun for me because
For
I was at a water park in the Dells with my girlfriend and her 2 sons. And when you're at a water park and you don't have anywhere to go, you just like let it snow. Who
Life
cares,
is good.
right? How was it for you as a meteorologist?
It was busy. Big kudos to Lisa and Holly, who did the bulk of this system over the weekend. I have to say though, I was staying in Waukesha with my in-laws for the Thanksgiving holiday, and we left Saturday morning when things were still light. But Ted, getting from Waukesha to Milwaukee was rough, even at 9 o'clock in the morning when things, overall weren't that bad. And then of course we know.
And this is when, Saturday morning?
Saturday morning.
Okay.
Yeah. Past numerous accidents at that point in time. So it was one of those events where even though it started really light, everything just deteriorated so quickly, and then especially towards the afternoon and evening. So it was busy. Started to get in a lot of those snowfall totals late in the night. We really felt, the full wrath of the storm system Saturday night. And then Sunday, the sun came out and we were all able to clean up a little bit. Did a lot of sledding Sunday with my kids. We were out at the J in Whitefish Bay for at least 2 hours doing some sledding. Apparently that's the popular spot to sled.
I live in Whitefish Bay too, and I live near Cahill Park, which has a downhill vertical of 4.5, maybe 6 feet. But I mean, these kids think that they are on the bobsled run at the Innsbruck Olympic Games, and it's so fun to just watch them go and then have that heck of a time coming back up. Plus, you had time to play because you have a great neighbor.
I do.
I saw
my
I saw your
gosh.
Facebook post.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Okay, I have this theory that a man or woman with a snowblower is the happiest person in the world because they clearly have so much fun with it. We had multiple neighbors out with their snowblowers, and it's like you don't just do your own home, or you don't just do the sidewalk or like by your house. You go all the way up the street, all the way down the street, and if you see a driveway that's not done yet, you just do it. Or at least that's how my neighbors
When I got
are.
home yesterday, I fired up my snowblower, which parenthetically, and I've talked about this on air, so we're not talking behind and back, Tom Walks convinced me I needed for a storm that he had predicted 2 years ago, and we got maybe 14 flakes entirely through the region. And I cursed him because I didn't want to spend money. I'm a frugal guy, and I looked at that and I would curse Tom Walks, and I told him this. And then every time since, when we have a storm like we did over the weekend, I go, Tom Walks, you're my best friend. Thank you for making me buy this. Yeah. But to your point, I did my lot, and then I started to do my neighbors, but it ran out of fuel. So, like, I was upset that I couldn't finish 2, properties, not just my own. So, let's talk about what's happening now, though, because I don't know. I called it an after-dinner mint, or is it stronger than that? Is it a full dessert after our main course? Well, how would you describe what we're going through now or about to?
Kind of an in-betweener. This is going to be a very light snow, but it could still drop maybe an additional inch of snowfall, Milwaukee and south. I think if you're north of Milwaukee, few tenths of an inch here, but this is going to be a really light and powdery snow. It has begun more so as just some flurries. I know our camera shot kind of switched a little bit now, so now looking out towards the west. If you look very closely, though, you'll see a couple of snowflakes coming by. So through the rest of the afternoon and evening, and even through about midnight tonight, we'll have some light snow pushing through. And so this is the northern edge of a storm system that's actually more so impacting areas south of us. But you can tell the snow is filling in as we speak. So just some light snow showers. And even though it's not going to accumulate too much, there are still a lot of icy and slippery stretches out there right now. Anything untreated from the weekend, maybe it hasn't been plowed, maybe it hasn't been, fully shoveled away. This will be a slippery snow on top of that icy patch. So that's the only reason why I'm just a little nervous for our evening commute, because a lot of times these very small snows, especially after such a big snow, it's hard to think that it's going to be a big deal. But think of how icy it was this morning for anybody who is out and about. This is just more powdery, slippery snow on top of that. But again, it's starting to move in as we speak. Biggest part of this system going to impact areas south of us. You can see some of those darker colors across Illinois and Indiana. That's some of that heavier snowfall. So even though we're on the northernmost edge, about an inch or so of snowfall accumulation through midnight, then it's going to be very cold tonight. Lows drop into the teens, so more of those slippery and icy stretches going to be possible by morning. Now look at down towards the south, though. I was talking about this earlier. There's actually a warmer side of this storm system. So it's raining down along the Gulf Coast, but parts of Arkansas and the mid-Mississippi Valley here, looking at an icing potential. So there's a pretty large area under a winter weather advisory. Not here locally. Again, we're just on the northernmost edge, but some of these winter weather advisories down towards the south actually for some freezing rain and some icing potential. So we're thankful that that's staying south of us, but hoping for the best in some of those southern states. Some of this snow will continue again at a pretty light rate, powdery, little slippery through about midnight tonight, and then we will dry out for Tuesday morning. We're still going to have some cloud cover, still going to be cold and a little icy tomorrow morning, so keep that in mind. Couple of flurries then the remainder of Tuesday. Otherwise, we really should start to see a quieter day. Just expect some of those clouds to stick around. As far as accumulation goes, with really this evening into tonight's chance for snow, you could tell north of Milwaukee, not quite as much, maybe half an inch or slightly above that. The southern half an inch to maybe an inch and a half. So by no means a huge snow, but it is going to impact your evening commute. And then again, just on top of anything that was already icy, not going to be great. Just going to make it even icier. And now when it comes to temperatures, I feel like I have to talk about this because we are in for a pretty cold week. Don't worry, kids, this snow isn't going anywhere. High temperature tomorrow, only in the mid-20s. We briefly climbed to about freezing on Wednesday, but then look at the big drop Thursday, and we stay in the 20s then all the way through the weekend. Plus, this is a preview of the wind chill we could feel the next couple of mornings. We are nearing the possibility Thursday, Friday morning of our first below zero wind chill. So it's kind of like every other day, Ted, we have a chance for at least some light snow, but then we're also going to get in on some really cold air after these systems push through. So some light snow this evening, chance for a few more light snow showers Wednesday, and now we're looking at maybe Saturday evening into Sunday morning for another batch of snow. So this is a pretty active forecast still.
Well, show me Saturday again. Move to either your left or your right. Okay, that's going to be the feel-like temperature.
Chill.
Huh?
Morning.
I understand that, but you know what happens Saturday morning, this Saturday morning?
Oh, is it the Santa?
It's the Santa rampage,
man.
in which me and thousands of others dress up like Santa or elves or Mrs. Claus or Krampus or Buddy from the movie Elf, and we ride our bicycles around from point A to B to C. And I'm committed to doing it this year, and I like it when it's like average temperature 41 degrees, you said, for this time of year? I think
yeah,
your
that
graphic
sounds
just
right.
said that?
Yeah.
That I can do. I don't want to do it in 5-degree wind chill. That's a lot.
Well, at least those costumes are usually a little thicker.
Right.
I think a lot of people will be
I'm
in
sorry,
costume.
they're called wardrobes because we're in character.
Excuse me.
You know?
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Your wardrobe for Saturday morning, hopefully a little thicker.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be pretty cold the next couple of mornings and really all the way through the weekend. The good news, Ted, for that ride, though, is that next storm system for the weekend is more so favoring later in the day Saturday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hopefully you won't have to deal with any snow falling at that time.
But we like it when it snows. It's fun to ride in the snow. It's the cold that really gets you. And we had a cold rain about 4 or 5 years ago, which was just the worst.
I know the last couple of years it's actually been pretty nice still.
It has been, yeah.
But not this year.
Would you like to join our group?
I'm busy, sorry.
What do you have more important than dressing up in Christmas clothes and riding a bicycle around to bars?
I'll dress up in Christmas clothes. I have this great sweatshirt with nutcrackers on it that my son calls robots. Amazing.
Okay.
Saturday morning is swim in our house. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I got 3 kids. They got to swim.
Well, we don't want
I'll be thinking about
we
it.
don't want to interfere with their potential to get a college scholarship. Although they're all under 7, right? They're all under 7.
This is where it starts, though, Ted.
Okay, you got to have the effort. All right, Steph. Thanks very much. We hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Same to you.
Excellent. That's Stephanie Barrichello telling us not necessarily what we want to hear, but what we have to hear. So we're gonna just soak that in on this Monday afternoon. You're watching the Wisconsin Live Desk. Take a quick break. We'll be back to go around the horn to see what's going on around the world. Stay with us. You're watching Wisconsin Live Desk on a Monday, a chilly, gloomy Monday at that.
have about zero confidence in the Secretary of Defense. I have tremendous confidence in the Chairman of the Armed Services.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Hi, everybody. Ted Perry back with you at 3:08 on this Monday, 27 degrees. And if you're just joining us, you heard Stephanie Barrichello tell us today, light dusting, mostly less than an inch coming back. Problem there is if the ground is still not totally cleared from the weekend snowstorm, and then you get a little bit of snow on top of it, it's almost a recipe for whoopsie-daisy because the sidewalks and the roads are going to be slippery, and sometimes you won't be able to see that ice because it's covered in snow, and that can be problematic. So fingers crossed for a safe rush hour as people are coming back to home after their first day of work after a long holiday weekend. I want to bring in our producer. There she is, Delaney Reed. How are you?
Good, how are you?
You went old school, got in the car with the fam this weekend. That's why you weren't with us on Wednesday, right? You were driving down to Tennessee, you, your siblings, and your parents. This is old-fashioned holiday. Any good stories from that?
It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
I was thinking there'd be a little bit more fights on the drive down and back.
Thinking
but
there would be or
surprisingly,
hoping
no.
there would be?
I was thinking. I wasn't
Okay.
really hoping there would be, but then there wasn't any, so that was good.
Where are you in this sibling ranking, birth order?
I'm the middle.
Oh, okay. So you weren't starting anything, but you were hoping the oldest and the youngest started digging at each other, weren't you?
Definitely.
Definitely, yeah. Sorry it didn't work out for you. Sorry you guys had a family-free, fight-free holiday is what I'm trying to say. All right, you wanted to talk about something with ketchup. What's going on here?
Yeah, we have a poll up about the worst things
Okay.
to put ketchup on. Because
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes, there was
Right.
an ad where he put ketchup on his turkey.
Oh.
So that was kind of controversial.
All right, what's the key? Can you bring the poll up, or can you tell me about it? What do we got?
Yeah, if you hit megaphone, it should pop up.
Okay, where's megaphone? There it is. Okay, so is this a live poll right now or no?
Yeah, this is a live poll right now.
Oh, okay. Did we just put it up?
Yeah, I think Matt came back here around 2:30.
Okay. Oh, this is going to be on our Fox 6 News at 4. too.
Yeah.
Okay. When you say Matt, that's producer Matt Keesing. All right. What of these things would be the worst thing to put ketchup on? Now, let me tell you that I'm a ketchup lover. I put ketchup on hot dogs. I believe in that. I'm a Chicago guy that believes that ketchup on hot dogs is just fine. On brats, not so much. The Wisconsin in me, there we go. Now we're cooking. Now, man, this is the worst thing to put ketchup on. Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs, he of the many Super Bowl victories, he put it on turkey. Did he do that for an advertisement, or did he do it because that's how he likes it?
I think it was for an ad, but he
Okay.
also does like ketchup.
Okay.
So he might just like it.
The least objectionable of all of those things to me is the steak.
I agree with that one.
I know President Trump often puts ketchup on steak. He likes his steak a little well done. So whenever he does that, this whole conversation comes up. I like a steak without any sauce. If you're a good enough chef on these things, you should not need any A1 or barbecue sauce or ketchup. I don't know how it would go on pasta. I think it would depend on the kind of seafood we're talking. We have a lobster there. I don't know if it would work on lobster. It might work on something like a dark, like maybe some sort of a sea bass. I think you could get away with a little ketchup. I don't know where, in God's name, you would put it on a salad. Do you?
I have no idea how it would go on salad.
Yeah. I mean, but do you have Thousand Island? Isn't Thousand Island a combination of ketchup and mayonnaise?
Oh, it might be.
Let me Google that while we're talking. Which of those do you find to be the least objectionable? Or the most objectionable, I should say.
I don't think I'd put it on sushi at all.
No? Okay. Why not?
It just doesn't sound too great mixed with like avocado and rice and fish.
Okay, so according to AI, a sauce made from ketchup and mayonnaise is a popular condiment. known by many names, including fry sauce, mayo ketchup, salsa rosada, I like that, very fancy, and pink sauce, widely used for dipping fried foods and spread for burgers and sandwiches. So seafood, let's say you had a little fried calamari, then that mayonnaise and ketchup would work pretty well right there. You have to use equal parts mayonnaise and ketchup. You could add some spice as well. So there you go. That's one that you could do it on. Salads, Beyond Meat, and sushi. Turkey, I'm going to be honest with you, not a fan. I know that, that became a little controversial the other day because Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said that to troops. He goes, let's be honest, none of you like turkey, you're all lying. Which I don't think is a great thing to say if you're in the public eye because, and you're a person of influence and you're talking to members of the military who are all hoping to get their turkey. So he did serve it, though. He ended up serving it to him. But it's funny how, President Bush once just said he didn't like broccoli for the first President Bush. And broccoli growers said, what are you doing? You can't say that. So, but that's a fun poll. Let's bring that back up. I want to see if how we're doing on that. Megaphone, you say? All right. The least.
Oh, yeah, more votes now.
What would be the worst thing to put? Okay, so they're saying steak would be the worst thing. And to me and you, that is now steak is rising. I wonder if people are understanding this question correctly, because to me, it seems like they're answering which of these is acceptable. Yeah, sushi. People have figured out that ketchup and sushi do not mix at all. All right. We should probably get back to the news because this is fun, of course. Let me take a quick break one more time here. And then I see there's some action both in the House of Representatives and the Senate floor. So I'm going to take a quick break here on Wisconsin Live Desk. When we come back, we'll check out what's going on in Congress because we have speakers on both bodies of the Capitol. We'll be right back.
And we sent videos to her to remind her how important she is. In her final moments on this earth, I reached out to her and told her that her story would not be...
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Ted Perry back with you at 3:18, 27 degrees on a Monday. We're going to take you to the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives.
The United States Congress
this is Michael McCall. He is a Republican congressman for Texas.
Kids a Chance
and this
Act.
is the last time he will be
16
addressing
years ago,
Congress.
I founded the Childhood Cancer Caucus
and this
because
is about
I saw that
legislation
children
for
with
people
cancer
with special needs
did not have a
and
voice
health issues
here
like
in
cancer.
Washington.
So let's listen in.
We cared about adult treatments, but no one was paying attention to the precious children battling this heartbreaking disease. In fact, they called it rare orphan diseases. Since then, we have made a change for the better, and today is proof of that. Put simply, this bill gives kids the same chance to beat cancer that adults already have. Right now, thousands of successful drug combination therapies are being studied and developed for adults, but not for children. The Give Kids a Chance Act will change that. It authorizes the FDA to direct companies to study those same drugs and therapies in children as well. It will also reauthorize my Creating Hope Act, which created a pediatric review voucher program within the FDA. It was the first ever market incentive for pharmaceutical companies to develop childhood cancer treatments. Prior to that, there were none. Since its inception in 2012, 63 vouchers have been awarded for treatments of at least 39 different rare pediatric diseases, 36 of which previously had no FDA-approved treatments. These diseases typically lead to death before a child can reach adulthood, but not anymore. A dear friend of mine, Dr. Allison from MD Anderson in my home state of Texas, was able to use this voucher program to obtain FDA approval for a treatment called CAR T immunotherapy. He received the Nobel Prize in Medicine for it. And this voucher program had everything to do with the FDA approval for it. This breakthrough treatment could change everything, and it has changed everything, not just for kids with cancer, but also for many adults. This bill will keep the successful voucher program going for another 5 years, fueling more innovation, more hope for children and families who desperately need it. So I want to thank all my friends on the Energy and Commerce Committee who helped me get my bill, which I'm not on the committee. Thank you for helping me get this done. But I also want to recognize the childhood cancer survivors who are in the gallery today. With 313 co-sponsors, this bill has the most bipartisan support in Congress, and that's because there's nothing political about a child with cancer. There's nothing more important than saving the lives of the next generation. My prayers remain with Michaela's family, and we're honored to have them here with us today. Her mother, Cassandra, her father, Doug, her brother, Aiden, thank you for sharing Michaela's beautiful story with us. She represents all the children who have suffered with this heartbreaking disease, and after meeting with them, many of them, over all these years, I can tell you these kids are tougher and more resilient than any adults I've ever seen. And they are truly my biggest inspiration. For many survive.
You are listening to Michael McCall, who is the outgoing representative from the 10th District. He is a Republican from Texas, using his last time on the House floor to talk about the need for more cancer funding, especially for pediatric cancer. And it's fitting, his wife, Linda McCall, is the chairperson of the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, so it is a family deeply committed to finding an end to childhood cancer. Meanwhile, on the other side of the U.S. Capitol, another Texan. This is Senator John Cronin. Let's see what he's talking about.
Michaela Nalen.
2024, when I co-led a letter to the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas pressing the Biden administration for their inadequate screening processes for Afghan refugees, including some who were later found to have had ties to ISIS. Madam President, I'd like to ask that the letter be made part of the record at the conclusion of my remarks. And Madam President, I'd like to point out that this risk and the threat of these kinds of deadly results was something that many of us were concerned about and raised with the administration, the Biden administration, a long time before the tragic incidents of this Thanksgiving season. We wrote in this letter, in the chaos following the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the Biden-Harris administration paroled into the United States more than 77,000 Afghans with no or significantly incomplete security checks done on them prior to their arrival. And the reason why parole is an important word is because
I want to be careful not to send you down a rabbit hole. I don't know the whole context of what Senator Cornyn is talking about there. So in fairness to you and to not waste your time, we're going to break away from that. But we'll monitor that as we have a busy day in both the House of Representatives and the Senate floor. Also a special tribute that I want to talk about to Rosa Parks, and we're going to do that when we come back. We'll take one more quick break on this Wisconsin Live Desk for a Monday. You're watching Wisconsin Live Desk 325. We'll be right back.
This is the Wisconsin Live Desk.
We are starting the last month of December today. It is December 1st. Boy, did 2025 go like that or what? Certainly October and November really flew by. But December 5th, 1955. Anyone out there know the significance? Anyone? Bueller? It was on this date. Let's bring up the tag board here. That in 1955, Rosa Parks arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white man on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. That courageous act sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, which was a key moment in the civil rights movement. And MCTS leaving a seat open from December 1st to 3rd. Every Milwaukee County Transit bus will feature a reserved seat with a red rose and a tribute sign honoring her courage and legacy. Also, we're offering a $1,000 Rosa Parks Tribute Scholarship for Milwaukee County high school students planning to continue their education. You can check out the Rosa Parks Scholarship link in our bio for more information. This is something they have been doing for a while on the county buses, and I think it's a great thing, honoring a great moment. If you ever get a chance to go to Detroit and go to the Henry Ford Museum, you can see the actual bus and go inside the actual bus that Rosa Parks was on in 1955 when she said, no, I'm not taking this anymore. I am going to sit. I've paid my fare. I am going to sit here. It's really quite remarkable and a great bit of history, and just a good reason to get over to Detroit, which is an underrated city in my opinion. But we'll let Detroit speak for themselves. We're going to talk about Milwaukee coming up on Fox 6 News 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10. Busy day. Glad to be with you. Filling in for Ben Handelman, who will fill in for me on Wednesday. We're doing that shift switch. Thanks for being with us. Have a great day, everybody. Stay warm.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Call 877-CASH now to get a $100 gift card for a free quote.
Hey, welcome back to Fox Weather Now. Thanks for being here at the bottom of the hour. I'm Ian Oliver. Busy starts. The first day of meteorological winter. Well, it looks like it across a big chunk of the country. The midsection and then into tomorrow, just inside the I-95 corridor. These are going to be some big numbers that we're talking about. It's a nor'easter, just not one that's quite cold enough to bring big snow to the metro area. So let's get started. We'll show you where this increasingly strong storm is right now. Then we'll get into where it's heading as we move through the week. That's the scene. We talked about that in Terre Haute, Indiana. 28 degrees right now, big snowflakes flying, and that accumulation, you look at the interstate off in the distance, that's a rough go of it, and it's not unique to that spot in Indiana. It's across much of the region, and this storm is still getting stronger. The